All right, everybody, welcome to episode 7 of the Killer Main interview series. Today we have a very, very special killer and a very special guest. Today we're going to be talking about Skull Merchant, a killer that I'm aware a lot of the community has strong feelings for. And today's guest is the good Pixel Bush. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Pixel Bush, known to some as the Lore Guy, known for primarily making videos on Dead by Daylight lore. I was well known as a Twins player for a very long time, but ever since Skull Merchant's rework, my attention has been, shall we say, elsewhere. You can mostly find me on YouTube, but I'm active on Twitter, maybe a little more than I should be.
Aren't we all? I will have all those links below for people who want to and should check out Pixel stuff. His videos are great. I agree with a lot of his takes on things. And so how long have you been playing Dead by Daylight?
Well, there's kind of two answers to that question. I started out in 2018 because of the Saw chapter, because I've been a Saw fanboy since I was probably too young to be a Saw fanboy. Saw chapters what brought me in, but I took a hiatus not long afterwards because I was a Doctor main, and they reworked Doctor and reworked Ruin, where I spent ages grinding for in the same patch, and I was like, screw this, I'm out playing, I'm going to go back to League of Legends. But a few years later, I came back, and I think it was 2019, 2020 kind of time, not long before I started my channel, and I saw Pyramid Head had arrived, and I was like, I shouldn't get back into this game, but I do like Silent Hill. So I got into it properly. I think it was the anniversary of 2020, and that's when I stuck with the game.
Anniversary 20. Was that Nemesis or
that was Pyramid Head?
Pyramid Head. Okay. I always confuse those two because I was like,
For reference, my first video was the Blight, so not the very next chapter after that.
I see. Okay. So technically, it's been almost 10 years, but I can't do math, 6 years, but realistically it's been about 3 or 4.
Yeah.
Did you keep up with the game while you were taking that break, or did you just
I did, yeah. I had a few creators that I associate with. The big one was Bricky, because he started off I started off making League of Legends content, which was my primary game at the time.
Right.
And I started making DVD videos, and I was like, oh, this is an interesting enough game, like maybe it's something worth giving a go at. So that meant that even when I was gone, I was checking in from time to time. I don't think I ever really properly quit. It was just I had friends that played other games, mostly League of Legends and Overwatch. And then when I stopped having those friends, when we all moved on our separate ways, DBD was a game that was able to just kind of wait for me. Because it was a game that I could play on my own or with friends. Like if I was playing on my own, I could just play Killer. So it was like, whereas playing solo League of Legends or playing solo Overwatch is like having teeth pulled with a claw hammer. It's horrible. But playing solo DBD, not so bad, because you're not missing anything if you just play Killer, you know? Like playing with friends, you play Survivor, you play solo, you play Killer. It was just something that slotted naturally into my evenings, no matter what was really going on. So it filled a role in my life, and then a very big role in my life not long afterwards.
Yeah, and plus, back when I played League, one of my biggest criticisms was how long the matches can be.
Oh, Dios mío.
Because if there's one good thing about Dead by Daylight, for the most part, I know there's exceptions, but for the most part, matches don't go more than 20 minutes max.
Yeah, I think one of my last ever League ranked games was 90 minutes long.
I did a support, or I did a back when I was a League YouTuber myself, I did a series where I was doing A to Z supports, so I was doing every character in the support role. The first one I recorded was Aatrox, because he has two A's.
Yeah, checks out double A.
Yeah, because he has 2 A's in his name for some reason. And that match was an hour and 45 minutes long.
Oh my lord. That's like, you might have an intermission that when everyone half time, get some oranges, and get get a show on in the meantime. Like everyone has a chance to recover halfway through in the Baron Pit and just wait for a bit, have a break, and then get back to it after you've got some energy back.
Yeah, it's because both teams were like doing pretty even well, and like no one wanted to like super hard commit on either side, so it just kept going over and over.
Level 18, full build, no towers, just waiting for something to happen.
It's League in a nutshell. Yeah, and okay, the big question here, and I'm sure I've seen reasons you've given on Twitter and such, but why Skull Merchants? Why Skull Merchant as a main? Because I know you used to be a Plague main, and then you were a Twins main for quite a while, and now it's
since the release.
Yeah, and then it was Skull Merchant now.
Yeah, well, in case my killer history might indicate that, I've always been drawn to killers who are just kind of really fucking weird. Like Twins do not work the way that any killer has ever worked before or ever will again. And Skull Merchant is exactly the same. There is nothing in DBD that is like her.
Right.
Especially post-rework. Because I see pre-rework Merchant and post-rework Merchant as completely different killers. Almost like she didn't release in January last year. She released in October last year.
It's more the beta test. And then,
like, that was a whole different killer. That was the Chess Merchant. With that era is done. But I've always liked killers with a gameplay dynamic where you put something in at the start and then you get something out later. Like Plague, great example. You put in the work to get your infections ready to commit to chases properly, you'll infect some gens, and then you'll get the ball rolling, and then later on you grab a corrupt purge and you go to town because everyone's injured. Suddenly you're forcing them to play the game by your rules because you put the work in early to put them on worse footing later.
Right.
Same with Twins even. You spread your injuries out so Victor can start slugging because as soon as everyone's injured, Victor gets free reign. Like, you put something in early and then later you can just go ham. And Merchant is kind of similar. She doesn't snowball as aggressively as those killers do because she still has to M1 you. But I like putting up a drone somewhere important, as a trap or whatever, and then half the match later it does the thing it's supposed to do. And someone just gets smoked. It's beautiful.
Yeah,
she's a trap killer that, unlike Trapper and Hag, has directly good reasons to chase. She's got a mixture of the kind of game sense macro play elements and more chase macro play than you might think. A lot more than you might think with what I've been tinkering with her. And I said this in my guide I'm working on. She weaponizes your game sense. A lot of killers, your game sense supports your chase. Like it's like you're picking the right person to chase. If you're playing a killer with a standard chase power, it's kind of secondary to the chase itself. It doesn't really matter who you're chasing, so long as you can down them quickly.
Right.
With Merchant, it isn't quite the same. You who you chase is how you chase. Like if they've got 2 stacks of lock on and you know that is a more powerful thing to know than I'm trying to think. The knowledge of how many stacks they have and where they're pathing towards is more powerful than any actual chase tool you could have. And I like how she tests that. How I can look at the HUD and be like, okay, this person has 2 lock-on stacks. I know this person's getting a stack over there. And that process of deduction in your head, thinking out your next move, thinking out how your next chase is going to go and how much time you can commit trying to get a claw drop or get a stack or whatever. I like doing that mid-match maths. Yeah, I love that.
It sounds a lot like, and I know it's not fully this, but it sounds like it's a lot of mixing the macro and the micro in her power at the same time.
Exactly. Similar to like other killers I've really liked in the past, Twins and Pinhead especially. Those 2 are killers that I really did enjoy because they have a bit of everything going on.
Right. Well, except for mobility, but yes.
Well, it might just matter if they're all on the floor.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying,
I'm faster than you if you're all slugged. Ha ha ha.
Well, I mean, it's like people like argue like, why is Wesker like so popular? It's because he has mobility, macro, map control, slowdown, and information. That's why he's so popular. Yeah. He has literally everything in his kit. That's not me criticizing the killer. I'm just saying, but it's like, if you look at someone like I said, Skull Merchant, the way you're describing her and the way I understand, she pretty much has everything except mobility.
Yeah, she lacks mobility.
But I feel like she makes up for it in a lot of ways.
Yeah, she does. She's got her strengths.
Yes. And I think similar to Hag, she I don't want to say, because like whenever I describe Hag to people, because I did the one with Gummy Peach Rings, who's a Hag main.
Yeah.
There's this idea that Hag kind of plays a different game. And I feel like Skull Merchant kind of fits that bill to a degree, at least from the survivor's perspective.
Yeah, I would say so as Killer as well. I view Chasers as the Merchant at least as quite transactional.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they are your means to an end. like where they're like individual decisions at a tile don't matter so much as the time you're investing, and it's to figuring out how to economize your time. And because unlike Hag, Merchant can chase and does. Because that's why Hag is really different. Is that Hag doesn't chase; she's very static.
Right.
Merchant doesn't have to be. Obviously, you can be, and there are times where it's necessary to play in a very static way. But it's she's an odd killer. She's a very, very odd killer.
Yeah, she's just very very different.
Yes,
and I don't think that's a bad thing. And I don't like. I hear so many people say that's why they don't like her is because she's. I think having that is fine. Like, I mean, I feel like a lot of times the killer diversity in this game is, if you really want to be, what's the word I'm looking for? Not pedantic. Like, when you're trying to find differences, but you're being so, like, broad with the choices that it's not really, like, different if you really, really want to think about it. Pedantic's not the right word, but yeah.
I get what you mean.
Yeah.
I get what you mean.
Because a lot of the killers, like, I mean, Xenomorph, there's been the comparison that they're just Demogorgon, but better. There's been the comparison with Chucky, how he's just Blight, but he doesn't have to bounce once.
Well, I've always thought of Chucky as like old Legion with check spots.
Chuck spots, TM. All right.
Yeah, yeah. That's the thing is, I noticed a lot, especially recently with the resurgence of Hillbilly.
Mm-hmm.
Like the way people turn on a fucking dime as soon as a killer starts to get popular. Like, Billy went from being the like sick Victorian child. Please save Mr. Billiam. He is consumptive and imprisoned at the workhouse doing hard labor with his overheat mechanic. And suddenly, they're treating him like he's punched a sainted mother.
Yeah,
it's like you can't really have it both ways. You can't have both. A lot of killers that do a very similar thing where it results in killer homogeneity. It's like you have a bazillion dash killers now, and they are generally the popular killers that see play. Wesker, Billy, Blight, Nurse, in effect.
Yeah, and there's
this massive aversion to seeing too many of the same killer in a row or in X amount of time. Like, I'm seeing too many Billys. Like, and then you get a killer that isn't a Billy, and suddenly it's the end of the world. So you get a killer that plays nothing like Hillbilly, you get a Skull Merchant, you get a Hag, you get a Trapper, you get a Plague, and suddenly it's like the sky's falling. Like, you can't have it both ways. You can't both have killer diversity without actually having a diverse range of killer powers. You can't do that.
Right. And I think
you can't just have 30 variants on a Hillbilly and Demogorgon.
Well, I think the other thing with like Hillbilly especially, it's like, okay, this killer hasn't been that great, or that like I want to say more clunky than not great, but yeah, he hasn't been someone that people have really wanted to play for like 3 or 4 years.
Geriatric.
Now. Right. He finally gets this buff that makes people, even people like me who hated playing I hated old Hillbilly, want to play him. So now we're all trying him, getting used to him, loving him, and now everyone just is telling us no, nerf him back to what he was. We don't want to see him anymore. But you just said okay, all right. I guess I don't.
Rather have a knight, I guess.
Yeah.
You'd rather have a Tombstone Myers. I understand. I'm sure we can arrange that.
I mean, it's just like I bring up Chucky a lot because I main the character, obviously, but
of course,
people complain about scampering Chucky. And don't get me wrong, as a Chucky player and as most Chucky mains will advocate for, we want scamper nerf too. It's not just y'all. We want it nerf too. But if you're playing against a Chucky and all you're doing is pre-dropping pallets, you're not given as much of a choice to not just scamper. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it's like it's a weird like mentality that some of the community has on top of like how they play. Kind of, I don't want to say forces our hand, but it's like okay, you don't want us to slug all the time, but you're bringing all these you're bringing For the People Buckle Up. You're bringing you're bringing like Sabo builds. You're bringing like all these flashlight saves, and it's like, okay, what do you want us to do? Just take it? You know what I mean?
I'm most like a background player or a lot. So I don't see a Buckle Up that much, but I see a ton of background player.
Yeah.
And it's like, especially if I'm playing Kill Like Twins, where you can set up a save from literally across the map because Charlotte has to get to the slug.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I could just leave you there.
Mm-hmm.
You could just chill on the floor for a while I go and do something else, because picking you up is a liability. I've said for a very long time, hook denial is the most frightening meta to be in, because that makes everything that you do irrelevant. Like, after losing a hook or two to a flashlight save that they got because they background played from the next zip code, or because they have to power struggle and you dared to reload at a locker and that's enough time for them to get it ready, or the Buckle Up gives them an extra 40 meters of distance because they felt like it.
Yes,
it's like it reminds me of the boilover meta. Remember when boilover was meta for like 3 weeks and it was the worst thing ever because you couldn't hook anybody?
Yeah, because people would go to the...
It feels very similar to that, where it's like your ability to end chases quickly or to make intelligent plays that hamstring the survivors does not matter, because the meta right now is to let that not translate into pressure. It is instant pressure relief by just getting a save. And I'll probably go into this a little bit more later, but I think it's a symptom of something very interesting we have right now, where people's opinions of what is skill expressive has changed, and I'll probably go into that later. But we're going well and truly off topic.
Yeah. I have opinions on that too. Don't worry. I've asked the community a few times what is skill expression. We'll get into that with State of the Game, I'm sure. Yeah. But okay, all right. This one's probably going to be a long one. Are there any changes to Skull Merchant you would like to see? I know she got a rework. I know it was decently recent. But this includes add-ons, base kit, even her perks. Speaking of thwack, leverage, Game of Foot. Okay,
yes, those are the ones.
Yeah. Any changes to anything? Anything minor, nerf, buff, anything?
Okay, there's a few things, because it's important to remember that Skull Merchant got a massive change between her PTB rework and her live game rework. A massive change. Because what she got was a rotation mechanic. She got increased drone rotation speed in both scouting and stealth mode for her drones. I can't remember off the top of my head, the numbers are a bit weird, but and she got no cooldown on recalling a drone. So she got 3 significant buffs. And I don't think they did not make her too strong. They did not make her overpowered. She does not need a straight up nerf. I will, like, people seem to be like, nerf merchants. Like, no, she's already mediocre at best. Like, she does not need nerfs, but I think she needs a bit of polish. There are some mechanics that I think kind of don't need to exist in the way they do, and others I think could be played into a little bit more. Big first thing I would do, scrap the stacking haste. Scrap it. It doesn't need to exist anymore. It is a relic of her old power design, where she had that haste based on if you were actually in a drone radius. Like, if you were chilling in the active zone, you get the haste to give her a reason to try and chase. That's why they explicitly said when they added that as a feature, we want to give her a reason to commit to chases. So they gave her the haste for that. She doesn't need it anymore. The threat of an injury, the threat of a hinder, is enough of a reason to commit to a chase. You don't need the extra haste. She doesn't need it. Get rid of it. I think you could also reduce the rotation speed of a scouting mode drone specifically, because her drones have 2 modes: one where you can't see the beams and one where you can. When you can see the beams, they rotate much quicker. They rotate at 85 degrees a second, if my memory serves correctly. And it rotated at 80 now. It rotated at 70 on the PTB. I'd like it to be 75, because rotating at the current speed, I think, makes trying to evade them through stopping moving or crouch walking at the right time a little more difficult than it needs to be. I think, especially because you can rotate the drones on command now, you have a lot more control over whether a survivor is going to get beamed than you did on the PTB. So the extra speed kind of is necessary to some degree. I think it rotates a little bit too quickly in specifically scouting mode, given how much control you have because of the rotation mechanic. Just a fairly minor numbers change, but I think it would go a long way to making scouting mode feel a little bit more interactive. But she would need compensation because she does not need to be straight up nerfed.
Right.
Big thing I would do, the add-on ultrasonic speaker reduces the window between getting when you get scanned, you have a 3-second immunity window before you can be scanned by a beam again. Ultrasonic speaker brings that window down to 2.25 seconds. And that difference is gigantic. A bright add-on that changes everything. Because it means that, say you're in a chase with somebody and they're at 1 lock-on stack, they get scanned by a beam, they go up to 2 stacks. Normally they W key right out of that tile, most likely. Mm. But if you are on the ball and memorize the timing, you can pull out your radar, rotate the drone, and the beam will reverse back into them. If you do it quickly enough and they're not a million miles away from the drone, the beam could cross over them and give them a second stack virtually instantly. It requires good timing because you have to get them just as the window, in the immunity window ends before they leave the drone radius. And it's a really nice way of being able to go like boom, boom, like stack injury or injury hinder.
Right.
Like it's a very powerful tool. And I think it's where a decent amount of her chase expression comes from, at least at like the basic level. So letting that be base kit would give her a second add-on slot, which is pretty, really good because that add-on is pretty much a staple if you want to play Skull Merchant decently. And that be base kit. If you must give her a stacking mechanic like the haste, make it not haste, because the haste kind of reminds me of Made for This, where it makes you misjudge distances in a way that feels kind of cheap when you get hit by it. You could give her something like increased braking speed for everyone stacked. You could give her something like increased volt speed, like kind of like a tier 3 Myers almost, like a baby tier 3 Myers.
You could just make it increased action speed in general.
Yeah, you could give her something like that. I would make alternative buff you could give her to compensate would be an extra drone. Because I know a lot of people have an issue with this playstyle where you just throw a drone down a tile and just wait for the health state to happen. Adding an extra drone wouldn't buff that because in that situation, what you do is just recall the drone you just placed to place a new one up. You never run out of drones. It would benefit playing her as a trap killer because it means that extra drone would let you cover a wider area. So it would play into her role as a setup killer a little bit better. Really, those I think are the biggest, necessary changes. So just toning down her more obnoxious elements, i.e. the haste and the extreme fast spin speed and scouting mode, and give her some compensation.
Right.
I did also float a change a little while ago, which replaces the hinder, because she has to have something to deal with injured survivors with a claw trap on them. She has to have something. People have said, "I'll get rid of the hinder; it's boring." That she has to have it because her power doesn't affect injured survivors. She's just a worse, harder legion. She has to have something. But I suggested replacing it with a instead of normally when a beam crosses over you while you have a claw trap, you get a 10% hinder for 6 seconds. I suggested replacing it with a window where you can pull the radar out and give them like a doctor shock. So disabling their actions for say 2.5 seconds, which is the same length as doctor shock.
Right.
So then it becomes, rather than you're just moving slow, it becomes a timing thing the Skull Merchant can use. So say you can rotate the beam right into them, they get affected, and then just to get to the window, you zap them, and then they can't interact with the object anymore. That would require timing on the merchant's part to get the rotation at the right time and then to pull the trigger on the zap. It would probably feel better to go against a bad Skull Merchant at least. Like a bad Skull Merchant will get less value out of that than they would get out of the hinder. I think it would allow skill expression for the Skull Merchant player that doesn't really exist before. That's kind of just a preference thing personally. I'd like to see that replace the hinder, but the hinder has a function in her kit that on some level, something needs to do its job, even if it isn't the hinder itself.
Yeah, so. And then with your idea of like the doctor shock thing, I think it also, I think it also means that there would be some. I always hate when people bring up counterplay because it's a very subjective thing sometimes, but I feel like that would feel like the survivor has counterplay and like they can time where they are in a loop when they know it's going to go off. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Perhaps.
Not always, but yeah.
Yeah, an extra dimension of interaction to her.
Yeah,
and that, I think it would go a long way to mending some fences, shall we say?
Yeah, it's like I'll take this long side of the loop now because I know the shock's coming in a second instead of taking the left side where the window is. You know what I mean?
Yeah, maybe.
I
suspect while we might see some numbers changes, things like removing the haste, maybe giving an extra drone, or changing how a stacking mechanic works, like changing the benefits it gives you from haste or something. I don't think we'll ever see a mechanic like that. Maybe we will, and I'd love to see it, but something needs to do what the hinder does. It can't just go, because she has to be able to affect injured survivors with a claw trap on them, or else she is just a shit legion.
I mean, I used to play Clown a lot, and people told me Clown shouldn't have the hinder on his bottle. What do you want? What do you want it to do then?
They just want the confetti. Pop and give these blood points. Easy.
Yeah. There you go. I've made the suggestion for Clown for a long time to instead of the motion sickness effect that it reverses your controls.
Yeah, I'd heard about that.
Yeah, I think it makes sense, and people are like, "Oh no, it should only slow you." It's like, yeah, but then it just doesn't.
No, but it's a case of if something else can do what the hinder does, why not at least try it? You know?
Yeah. Any thoughts on? I know this. I don't know if they adjusted this when they did the rework. Any thoughts on the radius of the drones? Do you think it's too big or too small?
I think it's fine just the way it is.
Okay.
It's fine just the way it is.
Okay.
Mostly because this is the joy of a killer with a bajillion moving parts, because she is so complicated. Like, you could do all these changes. You could get rid of the haste. You could increase the scanline immunity window. Do all these sorts of things to her, and the fundamentals of how you play her would not change one bit. Like, the way that she works and the way that you play her is so resilient because her gameplay style is so unique. You could tweak a million different things because she has so many numbers going on, so many little factors that do this, that, and the other. You could change her in a myriad of ways, and the core of what she is would remain intact, and that is very good. It makes her a killer that's easy to change without breaking who she is. Like, say Huntress, for example. Huntress is a killer who does one thing: wind up hatchet, throw hatchet. Like, there isn't much you can change there without bricking the killer in some capacity.
Yeah, they're trying to.
But well, we'll see about that. But like, that is the joy, I think, of having a killer with a ton of moving parts. That any one of them can be polished or adjusted without messing with the overall machine.
But and then
sorry, and add-ons. Sorry,
yeah,
I was interrupting you there. Add-ons, yes.
I was going to ask about her eerie ones because I don't offhand know what they do.
Well, Iridescent Manuscript is a banger. I love that add-on. You need to build around it, like most funny Iridescent add-ons are. But do you know what the add-on does at least?
No.
Shall I explain for the audience at home?
Go ahead and explain it.
Sure. The add-on, whenever a survivor disables a drone, it gains your terror radius for 15 seconds. And you become detectable and the drone gets your terror radius.
Okay.
This can apply to multiple drones at once. So if they take up multiple drones, you have multiple active terror radiuses. And each one applies all your terror radius perks. So Coulrophobia, for example, Starstruck, Infectious Fright, or my personal favorite, Ultimate Weapon. And there's something else fun about Ultimate Weapon on Skull Merchant. If a survivor is tampering with a drone, Ultimate Weapon hits them, they scream, which pulls them off the drone and counts as a failed hacking interaction. So they get a stack of lock-on.
So it's like
you can injure somebody with Ultimate Weapon.
So it's like Pig's boxes with the screams. It just stops it. And
it
counts as
Yeah, scream off the interaction, counts as failing it, and gives them a lock-on stack. You can injure somebody with a locker door across the map with Iridescent Manuscript. It's a build-around add-on for sure. Like, I run it with the add-on that reduces your downtime after they take a drone out, and then I run it with Coulrophobia, Ultimate Weapon, and then 2 slowdowns. And it's such a fun build because you have amazing stealth now because you have undetectable basically with the drop of a hat. Ultimate Weapon it's funky. Coulrophobia, just giving you bubbles. Because people often disable a drone in an area where they're going to heal because they don't want a drone being interrupting them. But if they take it out, suddenly that's a massive area where they can't heal efficiently because of Coulrophobia. So they have to be very careful with what they choose to disarm. It's a really fun build. I absolutely adore it.
Do you know if Monitor and Abuse affects it?
I don't know, because the terror radius is a static 32 meters. Okay. So distressing a monitor won't change it.
Okay. I was just curious because I was sitting here thinking.
But any TR effect will work. overwhelming presence if you really hate toolboxes. But yeah, it's a really funny add-on. It's one of my favorite iridescent add-on designs. And then there's the other one, which is ass. Expired batteries. The add-on, you read the description, you think, oh, that looks kind of good, because it increases the haste bonus from your radar by 25%. 25% and haste are big numbers to put together. Like, you read that and you think, that's a lot of haste you're going to get.
Is it multiplicative?
And then you realize, then you get your calculator out, and you realize you're getting 25% of 3%.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's multiplicative, isn't it?
Yeah, because Merchant's haste goes 3% haste at 1 survivor scan on the radar, 5%, 4% for 2, 5% for 3, and 7% for 4. So with one person on radar, which we're going to get most of the time, that add-on is giving you a whole 0.7% increased haste on top of yours. So you go from 118 to 118.7. And even in your best case scenario, when you're moving at, so you have 7% additional haste, you're gaining 1.12% haste.
Okay.
That is an ultra rare add-on with a significant downside.
Okay.
For just over, in the best case scenario, just over half the haste of fucking Dark Theory.
Okay.
You're getting half a Dark Theory on an eerie add-on with a significant downside.
Behavior?
It is comically terrible.
Behavior and game companies. I mentioned this in the last episode. For the love of God, when you make percentage changes on anything in a game, can you show us the end number and not just tell us, oh, it increases it by 25%, and then have us do the math and realize how bad it is?
No, expired batteries is comically terrible. It would, you could remove the downside, and the add-on would be like a yellow at best. Like, the add-on is garbotacular.
Yeah,
and I would love to see it do literally anything else, especially if the haste is going anyway. Like, if haste is going anyway, then change the add-on. Good, get rid of it. Throw it in the trash and give me a new one. Like, it is a legendarily awful add-on.
I know.
So I'd love to see it get changed. That and the skill check add-ons. Don't know why she still has those.
I mean, those are just dumb on any killer, in my opinion.
Well, because they were a relic of old Merchant, because they were actually pretty good on like 3-gen Merchant back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
Because then suddenly if you're interrupting somebody off a gen, then the skill checks, they'll get punished more for failing the skill checks, or they'll get caught out more because of the no sound. Like, it's actually solid when you just threw drones on generators, but now you don't do that.
Right.
So it's a relic of her old design, kind of like the haste is.
Yeah, but I mean, like, my point though is that even on old school Merchant, it's like, I think any perks are a little different because there's like only 2 of them that really do it. But any add-ons that like affect skill checks, just, I don't know. I've always felt kind of like I just feel like they don't belong personally.
Fair enough. The only ones I've liked have been the ones on Pig. Because Pig skill check add-ons that like injure you if you're healthy doing a box,
Mm-hmm.
or deep wound you if you're injured doing a box, I like those.
Right.
Because their impact is tangible.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I've had players die because they were injured doing a box with an active beeper, got a deep wound, had to mend it, and then ran out of time on the trap because of mending the deep wound. like that's a good skill check add-on, because even if you fail a skill check once, it punishes you in a big way.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that is a skill check add-on, something that should be designed, because you shouldn't be failing them very often. But the number of times I've gotten value out of those add-ons is pretty significant, because like, even though it might not happen, it may happen once a game if you're lucky, it doesn't matter, because the impact is tangible. You'll feel it.
Right.
That is what, like, but removing the sound of skill checks or making them appear faster, it's like, this is not worth an add-on slot.
No.
It's really not worth it.
No, and like, Hunter's Lullaby is a perk that I call the 2 a.m. streamer perk. Because that is that is the only people it really affects.
Yeah, looking at chat. Oh, I missed a skill check.
Yep, it's the people who are awake at 2 a.m. and not really paying attention, and streamers reading chat. That's the people it affects.
Yep.
That's not to say it never affects anyone else, but once it hits them once, for the most part, they're on guard.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've never been a fan of like skill check change. It's just like the ones that like do something if you miss one, I'm fine with those. It's just the ones that like actively change them. I think chlorophobia is probably the only one I'm okay with because
Cora is good.
But it also has the problem, like you said, and this is the problem with a lot of things in this game is there's like no tangible effects sometimes. It's like I've talked about this with blindness before. Blindness is a status effect. I actually don't think is as bad as people make it out to be. Because I as someone who's played this game for 3K hours, I can tell when blindness does something most of the time, right?
Yeah.
I can tell that, oh, they were running Windows and blindness made it so they went into a dead zone. I can tell that. However, even if that happens, I'm not sitting there going, hell yeah, blindness got me that day. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Because I used to run like builds with third seal and plaything because blindness hides the plaything totem auras. So you'd have people staggering around looking for their plaything totem, unable to see the aura that was right next to them. And because they're looking for the third seal, the map's covered in playthings. So it's like, so the playthings hide the third seal, and the third seal hides the playthings, and they're blind and oblivious, staggering around the map. And then a bug is barreling down top of them, and then they don't know where to go. Or it is such a fun build. But I knew when it was working because I'd see people like bleeding out on the floor because they crawl into the corner of the map looking for their totems, and they after no one was picking them up, or they just get randomly. They wouldn't run when I'm on top of them. It's like, oh yeah, they're oblivious. But blindness on its own, unless you're playing like a bleed out build, it's not terribly useful. It's kind of an orphan status effect where it's like. They can't really buff it too much because it will ruin matches because that is a perk that encourages like bleed outs,
right?
If it's good.
Well, that's why I'm glad no one runs knockout except for me sometimes because if knockout became meta, this game.
It's one of those perks that's really dangerous to buff. And blindness is kind of as well. It is eternally condemned to have to be mediocre because if they buff it. Suddenly, people start getting bled out. Games start just stopping happening, and that's a damn shame. It has it. I like being silly with it, and there is plenty of room to be silly with blindness. There is everything in this game, but that does not mean I'm under the illusion that it's healthy. It's not.
Right. Well, I mean, even like it also depends on the map. Like RPD, if you bring third seal on RPD. The amount of random kills I have gotten with that because no one knows where the person I hooked was.
Yeah, or Larry's another one.
Or Larry's, yeah. Most of the indoor maps, now that I think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's insane. Like you're taking away so much information. I mean, I think the obvious way they've tried to balance that is most of the blindness effects in this game have a time limit. And even like third seal is like if they get rid of the totem, then it's just gone.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's not the only status effect like that. I mean, like incapacitated. I said this for a while. This is before Eruption was meta, by the way, and obviously before it was changed again. I always thought it was dumb. They could drop pallets when they were incapacitated.
Oh,
well, okay. The only reason I say that is because of twins.
Twins are already a really good killer, though. They don't need that.
I
twins
know.
Are a strong killer.
I know.
They don't need to be like, yeah, you don't get to do anything now.
I just thought it was dumb that if they have Victor scratching their eyes out, that they could just drop a pallet. I just always thought that was so dumb to me. I don't know.
At face value, it certainly feels odd, but having played twins for 3 years, like, oh my god, no. You can't let that happen. Like, that would be... No. That would be so brutal. But no, incapacitated is a dangerous status effect because you need to be careful where you put it. Like eruption is a great example of how not to do it. Where you can just sling it out like you're over giving cars out. Like you've got to be careful with just saying no gameplay for you for a while. There's a reason that the only sources of it that kind of make sense are twins, because that's a downside for holding Victor hostage. For is Pinhead, because that's how he interrupts you with his chains. Like that's inherent to the way the power is supposed to work. And I guess like technically Xenomorph turrets count because they do incapacitate you, but the meaning of that is kind of irrelevant. Like,
yeah, but
yeah, you can't just give incapacitated to. I think it's the kind of thing like killers do that I believe needs to be kept to killer powers. Like, you can't just give that to anyone. That's a very dangerous thing.
Right. Don't quote me on this, but I call it a feeling, but I think we're probably going to get a Scourge Hook in the future that does incapacitated. Listen, I know it sounds awful, but I've seen some stuff they've added in this game, and it's not that outlandish.
Yeah, I don't want you to be right, but which is why I'm all the more frightened that you might be.
Because we also haven't gotten a Scourge Hook in a while, so
no, we haven't. I've just gotten a boon, so
yeah. We'll see. Any of her other like random add-ons you changed, like I don't even know what any of the brown ones do other than the one you said.
The brown one's actually all right. Ultrasonic Speaker is insanely good.
Mm-hmm.
She has a skill check add-on, which is terrible, which I've already said. She's got one that makes you visible on the radar longer, which is actually a pretty solid add-on because it also increases the duration of the haste that you get because they're visible on the radar longer, so you get the bonus for longer. Because it's tied directly to how they're visible on the radar, which is quite nice. And her last brown add-on, Adivayente Issue 1, that's the skill check add-on. Or did she have 2 skill check add-ons at brown rarity? I can't actually remember.
I will.
1 second. Consulting my legal team, aka Google.
Yes. As we all do.
Yeah, it's good when I can't remember the add-ons of my own killer.
Listen,
yes, it's the Blindness add-on. It's the Blindness add-on.
It's a Blindness add-on.
Okay. Yes, it's the Blindness add-on. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. You can get rid of the skill check add-ons, get rid of batteries because it's terrible. She's got a couple of really weird add-on choices. Like there's a purple one that reveals the aura of somebody when they receive a claw trap. But there's a problem with that. There's already a way to see the aura of somebody who's got a claw trap on them. Look at your sodding radar.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Like, you go, it's such a unimportant thing that you could tie that effect to the green add-on that shows you the aura when they take a claw trap off. Make that add-on give both effects, and then give her any purple. Like that would be wonderful. Like because it's kind of a GA readout's kind of a movement prediction is what it's called, advanced movement prediction. It doesn't doesn't need to exist. And the only other add-on that I have a personal grudge against is low power mode. Low power mode prevents drones from rotating completely. It means you put them down and they stay in the position you deployed them in. And I think that's lame as hell. It's just a personal that people really like this add-on, I know. But it reminds me of Baby Shoes on Artist, the add-on that shows you the aura of anybody who's like near a bird.
Near a bird, yeah.
Because it removes a key component of playing the killer, which is timing your rotations properly, being able to rotate the drone into somebody at the right time, and like being able to see someone's going into a tile and pre-rotate the drone so that as they enter the tile, the beam lines up with their movement. Like arming the trap as they get close to it. That is something that's pretty key to playing Skull Merchant, and LPM just gets rid of that completely because the drone is always in the right place. It feels it boils her down. A killer who's already not got a terribly high skill floor, it lowers the skill floor into like subterranean Legion and Stickle Bricks levels.
It seems like
it's such a disappointing add-on.
Yeah, it seems like it's one of those add-ons that's like designed to help newer people like learn the killer, but it can be abused by those who already know what they're doing.
Well, I think the design behind it was to give her a new way of playing. Like rather than covering a wide area, you're covering a specific point, which is I see the line of thinking. I do, especially because it was to replace another add-on that was kind of causing problems within combinations and whatnot. But let's not worry about that. I just think the gameplay that results from low power mode existing is dull as bricks. Right. It reminds me again of Baby Shoes, because Baby Shoes removes all of the mind gaming of artists because you just see where they are when you need to see them. And the process of getting a hit with the bird becomes automatic. And the power mode is very similar. It's like it removes a key element of the play she has at a tile. Like it removes inconsistency, but also removes flexibility. And I think that creates a less interesting game for everyone. So I'd love to see it replaced with something. It's not a problematic add-on. It is just cold porridge without flavor. It is bland. It's a sheet of it is a plain slice of white bread. There is nothing there. Yeah,
I mean, they could. I mean, what are the alternatives? I guess just adding another stat. Does she not have a? She basically has every status effect possible, right?
She does. But what would actually be interesting, I think, would be she has no add-ons that relate to her rotation. Not a single one, because they added it between PTB and live.
Right.
So you could give her a suite of add-ons about her rotation. Be like, okay, here's a brown add-on to replace a skill check add-on that means that when you put a drone down, it rotates anti-clockwise rather than clockwise to start with.
Oh, yeah, that would actually be a great quality of life one.
Yeah. Or here's one that when you put the drone down and you rotate, it actually pauses the beam before it starts to go back the other way again. So you can stagger it a bit.
Or increases the rotation speed after you change direction for like two full rotations.
They basically gave her a whole new mechanic between PTB and live release, and there's no add-ons that have anything to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a massive unused piece of design space that I think is a testament to the fact that they didn't really realize how big adding rotation would be, because it gave you much more control as a killer over when you get your lock-on stacks and how you get them. Mm-hmm. It gives you a lot more outplays that you could do that you couldn't do on the PTB. And she's kind of, aside from getting the low power mode change, she's received no real TLC since her rework. She hasn't had any follow-up to make sure it landed properly. And if she got that, if she got some add-on touch-ups, some basic touch-ups to her numbers, I think we could have a more interesting killer for everyone on our hands. But Behavior seems to be kind of willing to let her lie for now and deal with other problems as they come up, which is fair enough. But I'm hoping we get something by the end of the year.
It's funny because I criticize Behavior all the time because I feel like they're very inconsistent with this, where a lot of times they will either A, let something sit for so long that we all start to get upset that, like, how have you not adjusted this? Or they'll get so, like, overzealous and immediately change it.
Yes.
When if they waited a little bit, it would have been fine. And I think they've been slightly better about it over the past, I want to say, about 3 or so months.
Say so.
In my opinion.
The general rule.
Yeah, because I mean, like, the Sadako changes they just did, right? It's like, when she came off PTB, people were, I'd say both camps were mad. And now, mostly survivors are mad, but, a lot of the Sadako players I talked to have been very, very positive with the changes they did after.
Absolutely.
Yeah, even me. Once again, Sadako was a character I didn't hate playing her, but, like, she wasn't my favorite, and she feels so much more fluid now. Like, and they didn't
that's wonderful.
Yeah, they didn't even really change much, to be honest. But yeah, I think Behavior just has a problem with that. I'm fine with them letting stuff like this sit for a little bit so they can properly change it.
I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
What worries me is when she does get changes, I worry they're going to be informed by people who have no idea what the hell they're talking about. Because I'll say this, the depth of ignorance surrounding this killer astonishes me to this day. Like, not just among the regular players who run into Once in a Blue Moon, like, established creators, people who play this game for a living, do not know the square root of jack about this killer. So the feedback they give is, I hate to say it, complete hogwash. There is, like, the number of people who I've seen who are like, I don't really know how New Merchant works, I still kind of hate her, and I think she should get nerfed, and then I think this, that, and the other, and I'm like, You've just said you don't know what you're talking about. I mean, so why should I listen to you? Yeah, why should you expect the devs to listen to you? Like, I'm sorry, but your ignorance is not as good as my knowledge. Like it annoys me so much. There's this I'm trying to burst the narrative around this killer since the rework has happened, and it's like punching a brick wall. And I worry that when she does get her changes that I'm sure will be coming maybe by the end of the year, I'd like to see, they will be informed by the incessant whining of this player base. Because they would rather put a match or something rather than understand it. And I'm so tired. I'm so tired, man. It's why I'm so keen to do this interview with you, because if I can convince just one person that this killer is not the boogeyman that everyone says she is, it will be goddamn worth it. Because I don't want to see. I'm worried about the Twins update. I'm worried they're going to kill Twins. And it's been long enough that I'm practically certain that's what they're going to do. And I don't want it to happen to Merchant as well, because people are too narrow-minded and too fixated on what their misconceptions of what this killer was 6 months ago to affect the way that they see her today. I will not let that happen if I can avoid it.
I mean, it's not really a saying, it's more a proverb, but it's, no one will ever, most people don't remember what you were doing now, they just remember what you did before. And I think Skull Merchant is one of the biggest examples of that in this game.
There is so much like PTSD about old Merchant. There is so much. And a lot of it's fueled by ignorance of what the new one does. Like, it's on Twitter yesterday, someone I know was like, sorry all the Skull Merchant players out there. A friend of mine asked me why I hated her so much, and I couldn't really give a good answer. So, like, I was just traumatized after her old version. And it's like, I know there's obviously a lot of legitimate reasons to dislike her, like the haste sacking and whatnot. I get that, but I guarantee if I just sat down with some of these people, like one-on-one, and just talk through what she does, talk through the basics, like how she works, how to play against her, very simple surface level stuff. Most of them would walk away being like, actually, fair enough then. Like, I don't have the time to give one-to-one tutoring to every wannabe game dev out there who thinks that because they got 3-gen once 8 months ago that they are the leading authority on Skull Merchant out there, because they're not. I don't have the time for that.
I played the new game mode modifier, whatever they want to call it. I was like, I'll play Skull Merchant on this game mode because she has tracking in her kit.
She's great on that mode. Well, she's so good.
That's the thing. But when I was doing it, my Twitch chat was like, oh, just put all your drones on the gens. They'll never be able to do them. Y'all know she doesn't. Yeah, y'all know she doesn't do that anymore, right? They were like, no, she still does. No, she doesn't. like I feel like the PTSD. I hate using that word and devaluing what it actually means, but
no, of course,
yeah, but like the PTSD of 3-gen Merchant, I think, has really infected people's brains with this killer, and I don't know how they can like get rid of it, because it's a player mentality issue. You can't.
It is.
There is no patch in the world that's going to fix that.
No, and I hate to say it, but I think there are many content creators out there, many of them, who are in part responsible for this. And this sounds very catty of me. And it's not actually many of the ones that you might think, but it's a lot of people. Like, you should have seen when, I don't know if you were watching much DVD YouTube around the time that she first got reworked back in October. It was like the prophets of doom had descended from heavens to call rapture upon this earth. It was like, she's awful, worst killer of the game. This is the worst thing ever. We want old Bertrand back in some cases, some insane person cases. But it was like, there was no room for nuanced discussion most of the time. It's why, actually, I will give massive credit to Scott Jand here, because I don't know if you were around when I had a bit of a dialogue with Scott Jand about the new Merchant.
I did.
It was actually a really enlightening conversation. And I think, like, I don't know if I changed Scott's mind. I'd like to think I at least opened it a little bit, but it felt like that was the one island of sense of a discussion going on in amidst a hurricane of misunderstandings and shit slinging.
Yeah,
and I value Scott immensely for doing that with me. Like, I kind of want to see. I'd love to have more discussions like that with him, because he's an intelligent guy who listens, which is important. But end of the day, there's just this. If people would just listen, get off their high horses, don't pretend you know everything. Just listen to the people who put the work in, who put the time in to understand this killer. Like, give her the time of day, and you might be surprised. And I can say this from experience.
Because I mean, I do commentary content. I do these once a week. I put one of these interviews out once a week. Otherwise, I'm doing like daily commentary content, similar to Scott. But I try to make it very clear whenever I'm talking about anything I'm talking about that I am not some messiah or some arbiter of all the knowledge in this game. Some things I say are incorrect or biased, and I try to make that apparent when I say it. And if I'm incorrect, correct me. But when I say something is like because your conversation with Scott was actually very interesting, because I think it was not the first time it's ever been brought up. Obviously, it's a debate as old as time, but it was this idea of an objective stance versus a subjective stance, and I think that got brought up a lot, because
it did, yeah. Probably a bit more than I intended.
Yeah. But yeah, because it seemed like people were definitively 100% saying, mind you, like a day or two after the rework, that Skull Merchant is still bad, or she's still the worst design killer in the game. But they would never give like backing up clauses other than, she can do this with 100% guarantee when she can't. And
yeah, especially with the two moving parts,
mm-hmm.
there was always something more complicated at play, always.
Right.
And I've got a very, very, very long Skull Merchant guide in production that's going to be going into that in plenty of detail.
Mm-hmm.
But all the same, it's I'm just tired, man. I'm just tired of trying to deal with this constant narrative. And I know I'm not going to get through to everybody, and that was never my intention. I never intend to convince everyone that Skull Merchant is the best thing since sliced bread, because on one hand I acknowledge that she's definitely got her problems,
mm-hmm.
but also I acknowledge that even if in a world where she's completely unproblematic, shouldn't be to everyone's taste, shouldn't be to a lot of people's taste, and I think that's completely acceptable. Like, everyone likes what they like, and she'll always be an acquired taste, and that's completely fine. I just want everybody who thinks she's not for me to think it for the right reasons, right. to know why she's not their cup of tea.
Right.
To be able to say, like, I've made that choice, that I've given her a fair shake, and she's not for me, and that's fair enough. I will never fault anybody for saying that ever.
Right. I think like Larry is a good example of that, where I think people are on the more positive end when they're like, I don't enjoy playing him.
Yeah.
Because it's like, most people, when I ask them, because Singularity is my secondary main, he's the character I play a lot off stream. And whenever I ask people like, why is his pick rate so low? Why don't y'all like playing him? Most people will be honest and say, I don't like micromanaging the cameras. And it's like, okay, fair enough. That makes sense. I feel like I don't get enough value for all the work I'm putting in. Fair enough, understandable. But when I ask them about Skull Merchant, it's always like, it usually just comes down to, I don't understand how she works.
Yeah.
And that's just a damn shame.
And you see, the whole micromanaging the camera thing with Singularity, I don't play Singularity either, because that's the only part of the power I like.
Just the cameras?
Like, that is, yeah, I like actually using overclock. Mm-hmm. I don't think it feels good. I don't like using it.
Neither do I. Neither do I.
Like doing the funny little trickery with the camera. To be fair, I don't have the reaction speed for it either. I have the reaction speed of like a dead walrus. So being able to like do it very precisely and chase it always eludes me, no matter how much I practice it. But it's also just like, it feels good to. I've locked in. I've got you now. Like, I force the EMPs out and grinding you down. That feels really good. Mm-hmm. And now I'm just here, and I walk at the pallet. I press spacebar at the window.
He's a weird case of like macro gameplay, but like not really. Like, the macro's there, but like it's not. Also, I have had this tinfoil hat theory in my head since Skull Merchant came out, and I think you know what I'm about to ask. Do you think Singularity and Skull Merchant were the same killer at one point?
Absolutely not.
Really?
Not even remotely close.
Really?
No, I don't think they were at all. Because it's important to remember that Behaviour has two killer design teams working at any given time, Team A and Team B,
mm-hmm.
and they alternate.
Okay.
So Team A will do one release, and Team B will do the next one. And Singularity and Skull Merchant were worked on by different teams.
Okay.
Team B did Merchant, Team A did Singularity. So I think at no point would they really ever have gone near each other. What was interesting, actually, is that I have a bit of a crackpot theory about this whole Team A, Team B business. It relates to a certain penis-headed beast, the Xenomorph. Because Merchant was two killers directly before Xenomorph. So the Team B would have gone straight from her to Xenomorph.
Okay.
And Disney, as we all know, are divas.
Yes.
And the Alien chapter, this is just something I'd heard from. Don't take any stock in this. Is just me rumor-mongering speculation, just things I've heard on the grapevine. That Merchant, the version we got when she came out back in January, was not the one we're supposed to get, because Merchant's drones work in a way that they're coded the same as Xenomorph's flame turrets. Like the whole the way that they detect you and the way that they build up stacks / fire on the killer works the exact same way. They even scan the same way.
Okay.
Checking line of sight in that same way.
Okay.
I think Xenomorph ate up all the development time they were planning to use on Skull Merchant. Because Disney with divas.
That wouldn't surprise me with how complex coding the tunnels probably was.
Yes, because especially given that the drone system kind of got recycled for the flame turrets, even though they only really bear much similarity to the new version of the drone, not the old ones. So I think what we got for Skull Merchant was was half baked because they were putting it all into Xenomorph, because the same design team working on both killers at once.
Right.
And so the rework we got was not a rework to the killer; it was finishing the killer. It sounds strange, but I think that's what happened. The version we have now, the version we have now, at least I believe, is the version we were always supposed to have, or at least something similar.
Well, I mean, I don't think it sounds strange at all, and I also think it's like because we all know what happened with Bubba and Freddy.
Yes.
Like, I seriously doubt Behavior wants another one of those situations.
Yeah,
so
I think Disney being divas ruined Skull Merchant for us for 6 months. Maybe I'm trying to rapidly scrabble to blame anything other than my special favorite, but that is my speculation. It's what I've heard on the magical internet grapevine.
I mean, like I said, it wouldn't we have definitive proof, and we never will. No. But it wouldn't surprise me. And the only reason I was thinking that Larry and Skull Merchant had were at one point the same killer is just because I find it too convenient that we got basically two surveillance-like killers back to back. That was the only reason I say that.
That's fair enough.
Because could you think about it, right? Think if Skull Merchant could, instead of injuring the survivors, she places the drones up and she infects them and then she teleports to them with Claw Trap.
I'm not saying it just because I think the vibes that Singularity and Merchant give, the kind of power fantasy that the two evoke, are very, very different.
Okay.
Because Merchant couldn't work with a teleport, because the whole conceit of the character is that here's where I'm going to talk more about the actual character of Adriana and Maya for a second. That because they design these killers a lot of the time from the top down. They'll start with the idea of, we want a killer who infects people, we want a killer who turns into a big demon or whatever, and then design the power to match that idea. The whole idea behind Merchant is kind of this idea of a modern, of kind of a powerful modern technology era hunter. Think of someone in the vein of Most Dangerous Game, or even in the kind of almost like Hostel. That notion of a powerful, all-knowing, rich sadist.
I would think more Hostel.
Like an egomaniac who sees you as a plaything, whereas and so the technology needs to be modern. It needs to be something that's feasible.
Okay.
Kind of more, think more Saw in a way, where it's this is
basic engineering.
Something someone could build.
Yeah, just basic engineering with scraps lying around.
Yeah, whereas Singularity is like a space opera. It's Event Horizon. It's so, and that's where a teleport comes in. Like you could give Singularity Skull Merchant's drones and lock on and claw traps and whatnot. You couldn't give Skull Merchant a teleport.
Well, yeah,
that's where the difference is.
Well, yeah, I'm not saying one to one like they just. I'm just saying I feel like, because you're saying they were designed from the top down, which is how most games do characters nowadays. But my point is, at the top, they were like, we want a surveillance killer, and then it split into these two, is what I'm saying.
It's certainly possible. I just think the mechanics, both the technical function of them, and the creative vibes of the characters, to me, are different enough that I'm not convinced, but I can certainly see where they're coming from.
Yeah, because I mean, Singularity is definitely more, and someone's gonna hate me for saying this. Singularity is a lot more campy,
Yes,
in my opinion, until you start to think about it, and then Skull Merchant, I actually think is the opposite. I think she's way more like tonally dark until you start to think about it, a little bit more, and then like it gets a little bit more campy.
She's
good.
Weird. She's really weird.
I think it's campy in a good way for her. When I say like when you start to think
kind
about
of,
it.
yeah, kind of.
But yeah,
she's an oddity. We'll put it and going into that later. She's very much an oddity.
Yeah,
a lot of thoughts on it.
I have to grab something real quick. Hang on one sec, and then we're gonna talk about builds. You know, I said I had to grab something 1 sec as if it wasn't directly beside me on my desk. I thought it was on the other side of the room. Alright. Builds. So anything in specific you would call... Okay, let me... Because I hate asking this because, you know, the obvious answer is what it is. Apart from the, quote, meta build, which is Pop, Pain Res... The other two I can't remember because I never run it.
Ground Brace DNS?
Yeah, there you go. What would you say is her best build, apart from that?
Well, let me first say, don't run aura perks. You don't need them.
Okay.
Like, Merchant doesn't have information as reliable as she used to. But that's probably a good thing because that led to some really unhealthy situations that I think we're glad to be seeing the back of. But if you're a bit crafty with your drone placements and keep track of when to disable your drones and where they disable your drones, you can still have plenty of information at all times without really needing any aura perks. I always like to make sure I have a slot available for a 2-tap perk. Because for me, a big part of playing Skull Merchant, a big reason why I enjoy it so much, is that moment where someone's at 2 lock-on stacks, you get the 3rd stack on them, and then immediately afterwards you M1 them. Because unlike artists, you don't have a cooldown after you use your power, like where you can't attack. You can just go boom boom. You can get like I've got clips somewhere of downing survivor like frames after you injure them.
Yeah, I've seen them.
Like
I've seen them.
Insanely quick downing times. And there are perks that help you do this. There's 2. The Dissolution, and there is Blood Favor, because both of them trigger off of drone injuries, and they can take out they basically say chasing somebody at 2 stacks. You throw a drone up, you target them perfectly with the beam because it is a beam. You get the injure, and then the pallet blocks, or pallets drop and they can't vault it. Suddenly, that keeps them kind of imprisoned because they need to now hope there is a usable resource near them, either from drop another pallet or like just get distance away from the tile that they now can't vault, or they die. And you don't lose distance because you don't sit through a hit cooldown like you would after hitting them with an M1. Plus, you have your haste because they're claw trapped. So those 2 perks, running one of them, you get the first hit with the drone, and then the perk just goes, "A second health state, sir," like a butler on a silver platter. So I like to always run one of those. She's an M1 killer, so you can just run any sort of... my 2 normal builds, I have one build that goes all in on Dissolution, and one build that goes all in on Blood Favor.
Yeah.
The Dissolution build is Dissolution, Corrupt, and Pop, because Corrupt is just... It's good on every killer, but particularly good on Merchant, because if you're setting up drones as traps, it gives you the time to fanny around placing and kind of testing the team to see who will let you M1 them, who will let you stack them, kind of probing at the team to figure out who the weak link is. That losing too many gens early. I prefer Pop to Pain Res on Merchant because what gens you're protecting is often as important as just getting regression. Like you asked me, would I rather Pain Res a gen across the map or Pop a gen right next to me? It's not really a choice.
No.
I'll take the generator I can control any day of the week. And then the 4th perk, any chase perk will do. I like Bamboozle personally, but I've gotten value out of Rehab Brutality, out of Anatomy, out of Brutal Strength. She works out with almost every chase perk. But really it's just Dissolution, 2 slowdowns, and then whatever the hell you want in the 4th perk slot. But my normal build for that is Corrupt, Pop, Dissolution, and Bamboozle.
Yeah, I think Bamboozle's an interesting one because I've been hearing. I think it's really coming up in play rate. I'm not exactly sure the reason. I think I know what it is, but a lot of killers have started bringing Bamboozle a lot more often, I feel.
It's just really good at M1 killers. It's really good.
It is. It is. I think the only problem it has is a psychological one, but that's easily, mitigated.
The players forgetting that they have it.
No. Either players forget they have it, or players use it way too much.
Yep.
I call it bamboozle brain is what I call it.
Yep. Guilty as charged, Your Honor.
Yeah.
But then the other build is what I find rather more exciting because way back in the bad old days of the Boon meta, when I was a Twins main, fighting through like launch circle of healing in the goddamn trenches.
I'm so sorry for you.
Yeah, I made that choice. But I came up with a build. I called it the subtweet build because the day I tested it, I got subtweeted multiple times by friends of mine who'd run into it. That I was running into me playing Twins that day, and were like, "Fuck this build! This build is a disease upon the world." It was Ruin, Undying, Thrill of the Hunt, and Pentimento.
Yep, I still run that build every now and again on other killers.
Yeah, it would, because in case the viewers are not aware, that is how you waste time with totems. Because with Thrill of the Hunt, it takes 28 seconds to break a regular totem, but Blessing takes almost a minute because it doubles and then doubles a double. So you end up with 56-second Blessing times. And then they get rid of the totem, which means they have to break it because they can't bless it because they don't want to spend a whole gen blessing a totem.
Right.
So they break the totem and you put a Pentimento up in its place, which is also protected by Thrill of the Hunt. So if they want to get rid of your Ruin, they have to get through at least 4 totems through Thrill of the Hunt, possibly 6. It's crazy. It's so much time wasted while Ruin's eating their gen progress. It's nuts. But Ruin then died a brutal death. But
it's limping now, at least.
Yeah, Ruin's kind of back now because at least now you have to get rid of it because 4 people can kind of work through Ruin. They can work through the 100% slowdown. Mm-hmm. 3 of them can't.
Yeah.
So they have to get rid of it because if someone dies, that game is Jova. Like you're not coming back through even 100% Ruin. With 3 people alive and Pentimento's active. You're not getting through that.
The other thing with Ruin, because someone was asking me about this, it doesn't, the whole like new 8 regression things that blocks the gens, Ruin doesn't cause that because it has to be at least 5%.
Yes. Exactly. So the new build now, I don't run Ruin Undying because Ruin isn't good enough to be like the only payload. They like if they're doing well, they can just ignore it. Mm-hmm. But I run it alongside on Skull Merchant. I go Ruin, Blood Favor, Pentimento, Thrill. Because you have to get rid of Blood Favor. You cannot let it stick around. Because she can get the injury quickly, block off the pallet, and then smack you down. Like, that Blood Favor has to go. And that lets the engine going. Because then they might hit the Thrill, they might hit the Ruin. Then Blood Favor's still up as a Pentimento to get through, but Thrill is still up, and so that's making the Pentimento take longer, and Blood Favor's still blocking the pallets. Like, it all becomes, you overload their priorities.
Right.
You give them a part-time job cleansing totems. It wastes so much time while making your chases shorter. And there's a version of this I ran before the Ruin buff, which I'm still quite partial to. No Ruin, you run Devour instead. Yeah. So that's another ticking clock. You where we're going, we don't need regression.
Well, I mean, Devour is also one of those perks that, like, once you get 3 sacks, the game basically stops.
Yeah, it's like instant death is the best slowdown. I ran that on Merchant for a while. I still run it from time to time with like Ruin or Devour, kind of not umming and ahhing either way. Mm-hmm. But that's the build around Blood Favor, where you just stack up on hexes. Like you go, yeah, they might find it early, but do they really want to? Like, would they rather deal with a Pentimento right now? Because I will not leave home without either Dissolution or Blood Favor because those perks are just, they feel super stable on her. Mm-hmm. They're not bad perks on anyone, but they're particularly nasty on her.
They're very good. Sorry, I was going to say, Dissolution in particular is very good on killers that can do something on the other side of the palette somehow. Clown is a good choice. Nemesis is great with it. I really wish more Nemesises would run it.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Yeah, because
no, it's really greasy on motion. There is one caveat, unfortunately, which is when you put a drone up, you're undetectable for 8 seconds. So dissolution only applies in terror radius. So if you're just throwing a drone up at a tile and then they vault immediately after getting injured by it, it does kind of feel like you've been punched in the mouth by your own power. But it's not a big deal. Like it's usually fine.
Does it proc on the deep wound too?
It does not.
It does not. It's one of those weird ones. Okay.
No, unfortunately, Santa has not blessed me with free dissolution off deep wounding yet. Maybe one of these days if we get a really nasty bug. But no, it's still a very, very nasty perk. And those are my two builds, really. I won't leave home without dissolution or without blood favor. Like, I'm gonna bring one of them because they're too handy at getting those important 2-taps to really leave at home. And hexes are volatile, unfortunately, which makes blood favor a reliability on its own. I wouldn't run it with no other hexes because then it could just go with no repercussions. But stacking up on hexes amplifies the effect of all the other hexes because they're protected by Thread of the Hunt. They're avenged by Pentimento. Like a full hex build, I think, is as viable as it could ever be. And Merchant can kind of protect it because while she doesn't do what she used to do, obviously, like you put a drone on the totem, what you used to do. But now you're not quite as good at that as you used to be. But if you do something like you're hiding a drone around a corner, like you think, right, how would a survivor get to this totem? What would be their pathing? Say they're doing a gen and they go, oh shit, I need to get rid of this Devour, get rid of this Blood Favor, whatever. How would they move to get rid of it? And where can I put a drone up such that they're not expecting it, and maybe they run into it unawares? They're looking for the totem, they trip a drone, I know they're going for my totem, and because of Thread of the Hunt, I can get there and knock them off of it before they finish cleansing it. Like, you have to think about laterally, and like maybe using elevation to disguise the ring or the drone on the floor, or using a line of sight blocker or grass on the floor to hide the ring, so that then they can run. They might not be looking properly and run into the drone when they don't expect it, or make them get rid of the drone so that you can see that they got rid of the drone on your radar and be like, oh yes, this drone has been taken out. I wonder where the survivor who got rid of it is, and they're on your totem. Like there's a lot of different ways you can finagle that information out of the survivors, whether or not they really want to give it to you. It's not as easy as it used to be. It's not as like me put drone on totem, har har har. You have to be a bit more. To be a bit more careful with how you do it. Be a bit more and be kind of willing to get information that isn't quite as good. But you're still a very good totem defender. And I've gotten more 5-stack Devour Mores than I really probably should have done.
Could you
in the last few months?
Do you remember Old Thrill of the Hunt?
I do.
Could you imagine?
And I remember why they changed. I remember why they changed it too.
Yeah, I used to because the build you're saying. By the way, for anyone who's curious on what other killers that build is good on, Pig is another one where that build is a fucking nightmare because you're giving them another side objective on top of getting their hats off, and it's
I ran it on Pinhead for a while, and oh my god, but especially if you're attentive and you can chain somebody off a totem when they're doing it. Like I had people DC before, but during the boon meta when they were trying to boon a Thrill of the Hunt, and at the 45-second mark, a chain hunt started. And they couldn't do the totem because the chains are pulling them off of it. I had people DC to that. They're like, right, I spent a minute blessing this totem, but I can't even finish the job because I'm getting chained off it. It's like, it's beautiful. It's like poetry in motion.
I haven't tried it on Singularity or Xeno yet. It actually might not be too bad on them.
I can see it. Honestly, try it on New Sadako.
Oh my god, dude!
Try it on New Sadako. That could be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Also, Chucky isn't bad with totems if you don't mind waiting for a minute.
Of course.
Yeah. I didn't even think about that, but yeah. For those who don't know what Old Thrill of the Hunt used to do, it didn't slow down, right?
No, it didn't.
Yeah. So all it used to do was it would give you a sound notification the moment they started touching a totem.
Yeah.
So what you would do, because Pig would run this build a lot, is you would bring Devour Hope, Thrill of the Hunt, Ruin, and another totem, and the moment they started doing it, you would just walk over there in your stealth mode, they'd have no idea, and you down them immediately. And then you would just do that until you got your 5 stacks, and Pig has the fastest Mori in the game for people who don't know, so she works really well with Devour because of that. And it was, yeah, and you would just patrol your totems. You wouldn't even really patrol the gens most of the time with it.
Well, we can thank Artist for that one, because she's the reason that Throne of the Hunt got reworked.
Yeah.
She's the only reason why, because otherwise you'd never be able to get rid of a totem ever.
No.
She's the reason never got changed.
It was probably a good change, to be fair, but
yes, it was.
Yeah, because
I remember playing against Mother-Daughter Ring Spirits doing that. When it was like, okay, yeah, she can commit to chases with you, and T-Tot totem, then she's back on top of it in light speed because she's got MDR speed, traveling at like hillbilly velocity back to that totem.
Oh my
and it's
God.
Like it was horrible. It was like someone's force feeding you broken glass and then giving you a tax bill afterwards. It sucked.
You know, this kind of leads us into our next question. State of the game overall right now. What would you say about it?
I think if I could give a word, I'd say it's solid.
Fair.
Because I think we've come out of a really nasty meta. We came out of the Cobb Eruption meta.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, I think people underrate, just in hindsight, just how draining that was on matches. It was really bad.
Mm-hmm.
Just like, hey, every killer just becomes 3-gen merchant. Because you just find your 3 gens, you kick them in the corner, Brian, until the cows come home.
Yeah.
That was horrible. And I think the easiest killer has ever been. But people always think, the grass greener on the other side, but I can't think of a time which DBD has been healthier. Genuinely, I can't. Because I've always thought of it as the best week in DBD history was the week when keys had just been were like reworked, but circular healing was still kill switched. It wasn't active in the game yet. That week was DBD's best week, but we are as close as we've ever gotten to that time. Like, we are in a good spot right now. It could be, don't get me wrong, it could be better.
Right, of course it could.
There are some very parasitic perk combos out there right now.
On both sides. Don't. I was gonna say, don't act like it's just Survivor. Yeah, I was gonna say, don't act like it's just Survivor. Okay.
No, like there are some pretty disgusting perk combos out there right now, but it's not as bad as it used to be.
No.
And biggest dub of the year so far, the map reworks. Like the fact that Cowshed, Mother's Dwelling, Temple of Purgation, these like boogeymen of the years gone past got reworked in the past year. Like it's been Brian Odd a solid year for DVD, I think.
I think other than the Garden of Joy map rework, I agree with you 100%.
Well, Garden of Joy is a weird one because Garden of Joy didn't really change much at all. Like
no.
It didn't get worse. It just didn't change.
So the only 2 tangible changes I've been able to notice. They added like 2 more cars on the street that have a chance to spawn a pallet, and the pallet on the right of the house, the God pallet. Yeah. They sometimes, and this is what's weird about it. Sometimes the balcony will be broken, so you can actually play it as killer, but sometimes it won't. So it's like they didn't even really change it. Yeah,
God is an odd map, but in general, DBD is in a solid spot, and I think a lot of the time I see people lamenting this is the worst DBD's ever been. This is the worst Soluki's ever been. No, it hasn't. No, it's not. I think a lot of people are just burned out, or their expectations are very out of whack.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is probably doubly true, given we're also in between events.
Yeah.
And our mid chapters have largely had new content as opposed to reworks to existing ones, because we've had Nick Cage and Alan Wake.
Mm-hmm.
Our mid chapters aren't explosive as they used to be. At least we haven't had any big, massive perk updates. Like, not any like on the scale we used to have them, like the Tools mid chapter, which had like 30 perk changes in it.
Yeah, I think it's going to change this year, though. I really do.
Well, it's odd because I'd say last DBD year, the Dredge to Skull Merchant year, had almost no killer maintenance. It was all like perk changes and base game changes.
Mm-hmm.
But now this year has been the year of killer updates and killer maintenance. So I think we definitely do have our outlier problems, but I think the biggest plus for me in the past year has been, I think the gap between good survivors and bad survivors has never been bigger.
Yeah, I can see that.
Because bad survivors have had so many tools over the year to carry them that just don't exist anymore. Like Dead Hard for Distance, like Circle of Healing, like Old Decisive Strike. made for this. Those are perks that just gave you incredible value because you went through the hardship of putting them in your build, and you didn't need to be good to use them. Dead Hard, maybe there's an argument there, but the others, like, yeah, you don't have to be good to use Decisive Strike, you moron. Like, good survivors still have really powerful tools they can use. They have a full buckle up. They've got background player. They've got Fitful Power Struggle. Even not a bad perk combo.
No.
They've got Champion of Light Fixated, my new favorite perk combo. I absolutely adore that. But all of these require decent coordination or like good timing, some sort of mechanics. Survivor remains skill expressive as it ever has been, but bad to mediocre survivors are getting their head shoved in. And I think that's, of course, a lot of people's disdain. Not even because they're bad, but because their teammates are. Well, and they're getting the knock-on effect of it. Like, people say, solo queue's in a terrible spot because the solo queue teammates aren't healing themselves in 16 seconds like they used to.
Well, I've talked about this before with solo queue. People can complain about solo queue and tell the devs to, like, try and fix it as much as they want, but at the end of the day, there isn't a solution for your teammates playing badly.
No, there isn't. Like, show me a game where solo queue teammates are good. Any game, any genre.
None.
And I will... there are none, because that is the terror of solo queue. The only way you could make that, like, quote-unquote fair is to give the killer teammates to be bad with as well. And, like, the Texas Mask Attack. Like, that is the only way you can fix that imbalance of solo queue is to give the killer crappy teammates.
This is the best idea I've ever heard.
It's like, we can everyone have the solo queue experience. Because TCN did it, so clearly it's got some merit, I guess.
Oh my God.
But yeah, you can't fix, like, that imbalance is just that gap will always exist, and I think part of that people may be having to accept that. Obviously, solo queue can be improved. We could get more HUD details. We could get, like, base kit kindred, seeing your teammates' perks in the lobby, all those sorts of things. But at the end of the day, seeing your teammates' perks can't duct tape them to a gen for you.
Right. I mean, it's a heartbreaker. The biggest thing with, like, showing teammates perks is, like, I would just like to know if the guy across the map who just got slugged has Unbreakable. That's all I want to know. So
the guy on the hook has Deliverance.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it's like you and I don't mean to be mean when I say this. You can't fix bad players. There's just nothing they can do. Behavior can try with the matchmaking system, which is a whole other can of worms, but it's just one of those things, because it's like, I've heard people say, well, give the survivors voice comms. First off, it's too late in this game's life to do that.
100%.
People are too used to this game not having it, they can't add it now. If League of Legends won't add a proper voice comm system, this game isn't going to.
No, especially because, like, I think that would put a lot of people off.
Yeah. Well, I've said this before. You know what's worse than not being able to talk to your teammates? Thinking you can, but they have you muted.
Yeah. Or you say hello, they realize you are a woman, and then you are in trouble.
That's it.
I have a lot of friends who have very strong opinions on whether DBD should have voice comms, and basically none of the friends I have who are women are in favor of or, like, trans people who have, like, whose voices do not obviously pass. Are in favor of voice comms, because that's just a can of worms that you can't trust.
I play a lot of Deep Rock Galactic. I don't know if you know that game, but it is
vaguely.
Yeah, it is one of the nicest communities I have ever been a part of in the gaming space. It's a co-op game, so obviously it is. But even then, you still get the assholes.
Yeah,
and it's not it's not super common, but that's in a very friendly co-op PvE game. This is a PvP game where a lot of people have inflated egos, and I'm not going to sit here and say I'm not above that, but, like, it's just like adding voice comms. Like, once again, if the game launched with voice comms, like, it'd be a different story. It's just the fact this game is almost 10 years old. They can't just, like, if they just add it, they just can't. players have been conditioned on top of like you said, there's the harassment problems as well, and a lot of other issues too. But yeah, like as far as state of the game, like I say this all the time. I think we're in the best place the game's been ever since I started playing.
I would say so.
I would take 1,000 power. Wait, buckle up for the people. God, I couldn't remember the name. I will take 1,000 of those than Old Dead Hard, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, hard agree.
Because at least with for the people, buckle up. Like I'm still like, I'm not sitting there waiting.
Yeah. Or like old DS when you grab somebody off a gen and they DS you. Like,
oh my god. Or
I'm pretty sure that aged me to about 10 years. If I get grey hairs at 35, I know who I'm blaming.
Oh man. But and as far as like even the devs, like there are some issues. I really do think the devs, like I think they're trying to be transparent, but they just aren't.
They're not really used to it. You know?
They're just being very bad at it. I've said this before. I think they don't want to give false promises.
Yeah, especially because the few occasions they have like cross-play, early game collapse that they talked about, like players don't let them hear the end of it. Like it has been years since cross-play was ever even on the cards, and they're still getting shit for it.
Here's the thing with both of those, though, and this is why for the early game collapse, this is why you don't ever hear about it anymore. They said they weren't doing it finally and gave a reason.
Yep.
That's all we want. Like, I don't... And it's not just behavior. A lot of game devs do this. And I don't understand why it's so hard for them to understand. If you say you're going to do something and you end up not doing it, as long as you tell us that and give us a reason as to why, it doesn't even have to be a specific reason. It could be just like, oh, we couldn't get the resources for it. Fine. That's a reason, though. And you told us... And we don't have the expectation, right?
Yeah.
But you know, with behavior, it's always the no, or it's not even a no. It's a maybe. We thought about it. We'll talk to the team.
Might be on our agenda soon. TM.
I mean, how long has the Twins rework been in the works?
2 years as of last month. And I'm terrified of it, frankly, because it feels like the sword Damocles is over their head. Like that. I said in the Q&A a long time ago. I asked. Are they getting Freddied or are they getting doctored in terms of like what's happening with the rework?
Right.
The impression I got initially was that they were kind of getting like a doctor style update rather than a new power like Freddy got. But communication since then has suggested that might not be what's happening, and that frightens me.
So as a non-Twins player, and I'm gonna save this more so for when I do the Twins episode, which should be relatively soon. But the only thing I think they're going to... this isn't the only thing that I think they're going to change. The only thing I can predict them changing, I think they're going to take the mechanic from Chucky on how he picks up and put it on Victor. I just call it a hunch.
I could see it. I'm terrified. I'm really... like. At least I'm happy to move on to Skull Merchant now, because at least I know my killer is going to stay intact for at least an amount of time. But I fear that due to the really small player pool that Twins have, that behavior don't know what to do with them. And like the reputation's pretty bad. Not as bad as it used to be, but still pretty bad. I fear that either going to overbuff them because Twins are already a very good killer. I fear that they're either going to overdo it because the Twins are very underrated in terms of their strength. People think they're bad. They are not bad. Twins are really not a bad.
No,
killer.
They're not bad at all. No. They're
really damn strong.
They're just clunky. You know, it's honestly really the only problem.
And I worry they're going to overdo it because they'll try and make them so that anyone can play them and make them conventionally strong without toning down some of their stranger elements. Or they're either going to overdo it. They're either going to do what they did with Billy, but on steroids. Because remember, they slightly overdid Billy. I'm going to say with things like the core Add Ons and whatnot. They slightly overcooked him, and things that Nerf Thompson's mix and stuff have shown that was that they did overcook in little places. But I worry with Twins, they're going to go way overboard because they don't know what they're doing with them because they're such a weird killer.
I'm going to give my entire the most balls crazy rework idea for Twins.
Alternatively, they just Freddy them and give them a whole new power, and it'll suck because the Twins players are just going to abandon them because there's a whole new. They're just playing Legion now, or whatever. They're just Freddy now, or they're just.
What's the weapon that they use? It's a Is it just a sickle? It's not the thing you throw into hay bales?
It is a sickle.
Okay.
Charlotte made herself.
Okay. What I was gonna say, because I thought it was one of like those the hay hooks. They have an actual name. I live in the country. I should know what they're called. Basically, I always thought it was like one of those things you like throw into hay stacks to like pick them up. My suggestion was Charlotte's gonna throw Victor, the survivors, and then he's gonna have a chain attached to them, and she can pull herself.
Roadhog core.
You know, if a killer power isn't working, just add mobility, and everyone will love them.
Yeah, that's kind of why I'm worried, because I worry that they want to turn them into another Demogorgon or another Hellbilly, and I'm like, I don't want that. I want twins.
You're right.
Like, if you want to play Chucky or you want to play Demogorgon and play Billy, play those killers. They already exist.
Exactly.
There is only one. There's only one twins. There's nothing like them in the game at all. And I'm terrified that they're gonna murder them. Again, why I'm happy I've moved on largely to Skull Merchant, because I at least get the sense that my killer isn't living on borrowed time.
Yeah,
it's terrifying. But like, aside from that, I think the game is in a pretty decent spot. Like, the future is uncertain. It could all go horribly wrong. But if the game was the way it is now forever, that's better than it really has. Better than any freeze frame of DVD past before that. So
yeah, I think I'm happy with the state of the game being uncertain. I know that sounds weird and kind of paradoxical, but like,
it's exciting.
Yeah, it's like I don't know what they're gonna do. Like,
yeah,
it's great. I've said it before. Like, the biggest thing that I wanted them to do is, I know people had their opinions on 6.1. My thoughts on 6.1 were, I didn't care that they changed so much at once if they did it more often. That was my thoughts on it. I thought we were going to get a patch like that every 6 months. That's what I thought was going to start happening, and it really didn't. And that was the only reason I'm not the biggest fan of 6.1. But yeah, overall though, like, I mean, gens are flying, but that's more like gens are flying. Tunneling is not getting out of hand for a lot of players, and there's all these other baseline issues, but I think it's just inherent to the game at this point. I don't really think there's anything behavior can really do.
And I'm going to say something quite controversial here. If I've never seen more complaints about tunneling while seeing players running fewer anti-tunneling perks.
That is true.
I don't see enough off the record. I don't see nearly enough decisive strike. I'm seeing it more than I used to, but still not as much as I should be seeing it. And if people are running it, they're running it like a moron.
Well,
like, I've seen players who like run into the open in rotten fields, like just into nowhere, get a DS, and then wonder why they're not getting distance. Like, or players trying to take hits off of hook with off the record, and then wondering why the killer's tunneling them when they got hit 4 seconds after they got off the hook. It's like, and I'll be honest, unless you're up against a top tier killer or like a killer who specializes in tunneling, like Wesker Pyramid Head, I don't think tunneling is that big a problem.
The thing is,
because there's so many ways that you can work around it. Like, if you're being tunneled out by a clown or by a doctor, and your teammates aren't taking hits for you, and you don't have any tunneling perks, and you're holding a bad chase, like, yeah, maybe this should be happening. Like, maybe if your teammates are playing wrong, if you are having quick chases and you haven't got any perks to help you out in this area because you're too busy running distortion or something, or actually buckle up. Well, yeah, maybe tunneling should be punished by tunneling.
Well,
maybe that should be a thing that should happen to you.
Yeah, well, I mean, the other thing with it, right, is like, let's say you are running, because I saw someone who ran, there was a clip I liked last night on Twitter. Guy had Deliverance, Off the Record, Decisive Strike, Dead Hard. That was his build. He got hooked, Deliverance off, Trickster hit his Off the Record, downed him. He hit the Trickster with Decisive Strike, ran away, he got the Dead Hard to go off. He still got downed and put back on the hook. But do you realize how much time he just wasted doing all that?
Yeah. If 3 gens haven't popped at least by the time that's happened, then your teammates are eating oranges instead of doing gens. Right. I don't know.
And here's the thing. That's always been my point with tunneling. It's like, if the killer is dead set on tunneling you, yes, it doesn't matter what perks you're bringing. He's gonna tunnel you and kill you. However, if your team doesn't win off of you getting tunneled that hard, that's your teammate's fault. That is not your fault or the killer's fault at that point. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like top tiers notwithstanding, like Nurse Blight we know, Spirit we know.
Yeah.
But against any other killer, it's like you should be able to buy enough time, or your teammates can maybe help you by taking hits since it's like an M1 killer or something. Like to, if you're being tunneled, get one kill. Like, on one hand, I do get that it's still not fun to get tunneled a lot of the time, especially if it's like a killer without particularly interesting chase power. But at the same time, it's like, if players want to do it, they will do it. That is, you can't game design away player behavior. We've already talked about this. So the best you can do is ensure that if you must sell your life, sell it dearly.
Yeah.
And I think right now, good players can and will do that. It isn't like the best teams in the world are getting wiped out at 3 gens because someone got tunneled out. It's gens aren't going that slowly. Like you like, unless it's a top tier killer, or you just left all your tunneling perks at home, you have the tools you need. I just think it's kind of what I was saying earlier about how bad players can't get carried anymore because they don't have like DS gets the half the distance they used to get them. It's still a solid perk. It's still a good chase extender, but it's not like it doesn't reset the chase that DS used to do.
Yeah, and I mean, even wasting 2 or even wasting like an extra 5 seconds of the killer's time can mean the world.
Yeah,
I think the bigger, I think it's a symptom of solo queue, and I know some people are going to hate me saying that, and I understand most of the player base is solo queue survivor, but my point is when the killer gets 1 kill, they lose.
Yeah.
But the 3 survivors who got out feel like they won, and the 1 survivor who got tunneled feels like they lost, even though their team won. And that's just that's just an inherent problem of how this game is designed. And there's, at this point, I don't really think you can really change it. There's no way to change player sentiment, right? It's like, because like I said, it's like if the killer loses in that situation, they only got 1 kill, 3 outed. 3 people who got out, they won. Their team won. The person who got tunneled the whole match and died feels like they got the short end of the stick and shafted. And yeah, I think it's just a problem they can't fix.
You're not wrong at all. Will players realize this? Well, we'll have to see.
I mean, because whenever I get tunneled out and my team wins, I'm happy about it. I don't care too much. It's like, okay, cool.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. Like if I'm tunneled out and there's like 1 gen left, maybe 2, it's like I did my job.
Right.
I've been useful. I did the thing I meant to do.
I mean, it's same with being camped, which doesn't happen. I mean, it's proxy camping mostly now, but even if I'm being camped, and as long as the gens are getting done, as long as no one's stupid and comes over there and notices the killer and just waits for some reason,
yeah,
those people irritate me so much.
Yeah, and then that's one thing that I would like to see a solo queue improvement for. Let your teammates see your anti-camp meter.
Oh my god!
Because then you can actually know if your kickback meter is going up. They can go, oh yeah, I'm just going to sit on my gen now and let them unhook themselves. Or it's not going up. Maybe now's a good time to go for a save. Or maybe I'm I can hear terrorists next to the hook, but their anti-camp isn't going up. Maybe I'm screwing it, and you just go in for a trade right now.
Right.
Like before they drop a stage. That would be an example of a great solo queue improvement. Just a little thing that would free people up a little bit, but.
Yeah, and I think that this leads back to the we were talking about Billy earlier and how people are complaining about him. I hear a lot of complaints about Billy, like all the Billies I'm playing against are just tunneling and camping everybody. Okay, that is not a Billy problem. That is not Billy's fault. That is the player playing Billy. It's just like when Chucky first came out, people were like, all the Chuckies I play against are camping and tunneling. Once again, that is not Chucky's fault.
That's just the way people play.
Yeah,
you know?
I mean, he's good at
wow, all these Vittorio players doing gens and dropping pallets. Like, yes. Correct answer.
All right, to get back on Skull Merchant.
Yeah, we've gone well for that topic.
her power level?
Mediocre.
Mediocre.
I think she's mediocre.
You think she's middle of the pack or like below the middle?
I think she's pretty much exactly in the middle.
Okay.
I think she's decent by M1 killer standards. I think she lacks what is it? Mobility is a big thing, but also she lacks speed. She lacks the ability to commit to chases. Like, because say like a Wesker, a Huntress will commit to most of their chases. A Deathslinger will commit to almost every chase he's in. And other killers, like say Wraith, Sadako, they don't have to because they have an ability to go wherever they need to go. Merchant doesn't have that choice. You're punished a lot for not managing your time properly. And survivors as an M1 killer will know how to waste it. And that's your biggest enemy is time. Like if matches were up as long as you wanted, obviously Merchant would be insane. But she doesn't. It's your job to make time, to waste as much time as you can, and economize your own. And a lot of too much control of that is in the survivor's hands for her to be any better than mediocre, I think.
Yeah, I'd probably put her. Yeah, I'd probably put her about the same, to be honest. And I think it's fine, honestly.
Yeah, I think she could get some small buffs. Like say if they were to do things getting rid of the haste, I could see her getting some chunkier buffs, like playing a bit more into what she should be good at. But I think her being where she is kind of okay. Like obviously if she's a bit better, I wouldn't say no, but I don't think she's in like desperate need of resuscitation right now.
Yeah, and I've always advocated for we don't need to slap mobility on every killer. I remember I mentioned once I was talking about Trapper, and I was like, listen, they're not just going to come out one day and make it so Trapper can just teleport to someone who got trapped in a trap. And someone was like, actually, no, that would make sense. No, it wouldn't, but okay, man. All right.
Given Hanger Harley Davidson.
Someone was like, well, he's based on Jason, and Jason teleports in the movies.
Jason also has bad mummy issues. Are we going to be...
well,
his Archie McMillan sweater.
Yeah, but Trapper has daddy issues, so it works.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, like I said, probably mediocre. And once again, I feel like more killers need to be in that mediocre realm, to be honest.
Yeah, I think I wouldn't... I don't think killers should really be weaker than she is right now. Like any weaker than her, I think, yeah, they do probably need some buffs.
Well, like, I think she's in this situation where she has a weakness, but it's not such a super, like, I don't want to say it's not exploitable, but it's not like 100% like every match, every situation you can exploit.
It isn't crippling.
Yeah. And I think that's where most killers should be, right?
Yeah.
Because I think it's a problem with like the S tier killers is like.
Yeah, I don't think killer should be really any weaker than she is. I think she's as bad as a killer can be while still being a good killer. You know?
Yeah.
Like,
I gotcha.
She's the worst good killer.
Put it on a shirt.
Yeah.
Tips for new Skull Merchant players, and when I say new, I mean not someone who just like bought Dead by Daylight. I mean, someone who's been playing for a bit. It's like, you know what, she looks fun. I'll play her.
Okay, most important thing by far, when you put a drone up, where you are looking, like this is something I call laser tagging. When you put a drone up, it deploys 0.3 seconds in the exact direction and position that you are facing when you press the button. And that's where the beam will point right out the front and right out the back, 10 meters each way. Do not think of the drone as a radius. Think of it as two beams. And if you can place that beam directly on a survivor as that 0.3 second arming time ends, that is an instant lock-on stack. So it turns an inconsistent and time-consuming chase tool into a very consistent, like, place, boom. Because that is effectively a zoning attack like Xenomorph's tail with a 0.2 second wind-up time. So that is a very, like, that's why I call it laser tagging, because you're literally pointing the drone at somebody and
right,
like a laser beam, 0.3 seconds. If you get that timing down in your head, you also have to lead a target a little bit, because if they're standing still, it isn't going to hit them. But that adds a lot of consistency to otherwise pretty inconsistent and slow power. So that if when you're in chase with somebody, that's what you're focusing on, trying to nail people with these lock-on stacks on deployment. Because then even if they leave the tile, you've got a stack on them for free.
Mm.
You don't lose distance from it. You lose bloodlust, but you don't lose any distance, which is important. And if you're going for a 2-tap, that is the cleanest way of doing it, where you can hit them with the beam on deployment, and then before they get speed boost, you follow up with the M1. But yeah, you just throwing a drone down at a tile willy-nilly hoping for the best will waste your time forever. Especially if they have a chain tile, it'll waste your time for about a million years. Best thing you can do, take advantage of laser tagging and of timely rotations to make sure that if they leave a tile, they're goddamn paying for it. Because they take a stack from a laser tag, take a second one trying to leave the tile, and you spin the drone back into them. Like, make them pay for every step of distance they try and take from you. And you have the tools to do it. You just need to be precise and have good timing.
Okay.
And it'll take. People say that Skull Merchant is the easiest killer in the game. She's absolutely not. Legion exists. But if you want to engage with a killer, like Skull Merchant has a pretty low skill floor. Like you can get into her without really learning much and have a decent time. But if you want to actually beat survivors who have intelligence greater than your fridge, you're going to need to be a bit more than that. And part of that is laser tagging. Part of it's keeping those stacks high and meaning that even if they leave the tile, they're not getting a good deal out of it. My guide is in production right now. It's 90 minutes long to give you an indication of how complex it goes.
Mm-hmm.
And this killer has more depth than anyone gives her credit for. And I couldn't really go into it all right now because we'll be here for another 2 hours, but
yeah, I think
good luck.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, like, after talking to a lot of people, like, even the Wraith video I've done of this, I feel like every killer has way more depth than people are willing to admit sometimes. Because even Wraith, like, he's a very simple killer. Come out of cloak, bing bong, hits somebody, right? That's in essence, that's all he is.
Yeah.
But there's more, like, complexity to it if you want to be good with them. Right?
Yeah.
There's a difference between getting value out of a character and being good with a character.
Yeah. I've never seen a killer where that is more true than Skull Merchant ever.
Mm-hmm.
That the gulf between the perceived like skill flaw, i.e. that she's like the easiest thing in the game, like I see tweets every day that are like, Skull Merchant literally skillless. Like there is no way you can be good at Skull Merchant. And then the delta between reading that and the reality of the situation, having been doing it since October, it's like you haven't got the faintest clue what you're talking about.
Yeah,
and when I get this guide done, I hope we intend to show them all. You know.
Listen, I heard that a lot when I and I'm not implying he's as complicated or as skill intensive as Skull Merchant, but I heard that a lot with Clown too. It's like people are like, Clown is just throw a bottle, chase, hit, throw a bottle. There is so much more that goes into it than I think people realize. There's a reason Aranad was able to write a 135-page guide on the man.
Yeah.
And I mean, you're doing a 90-minute tutorial, or not tutorial, guide on how to play her, and I'm assuming a lot of that's going to go over drone placement alone.
Yes, yeah. I think it's so much. There's so much to talk about.
Because I'm working on the Chucky guide too. I'm waiting until because the forum post they did a couple weeks ago makes me think they're going to change him again. So I'm waiting before I actually do it. But
fair enough.
I think that the hardest part of making a guide is honestly trying to figure out what to leave out.
Yes, you're right.
It's like, this is something I think is important, but like, do people really need to know this?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. And you kind of went into this a bit, but tips for playing against her?
Okay. So, big thing. Drones cannot see you if you are standing still. I will repeat that. The drones cannot see you if you are standing still.
T-Rex. It's
people
T-Rex.
need to get that into their goddamn brains. Like, placing drones on Jans, if she's just doing that willy-nilly, she should be, like, trying to play like old 3-gen merchant, she's doing it wrong. Like, you should be railing her if that's what she's trying to do. Because like, you can look at the drone while you're doing the gen and it won't spot you. And when she comes to get you off the gen, you can see where it's pointing and you can just not go where the drone is pointing at. And then you can make distance, and it's like she never even put the drone there because it didn't do anything.
Right.
Or like, even in tiles, if you know you're at 2 stacks, you can look at the little meter on your icon in the left corner to see how many stacks you've got. If you know she's about to get the 3rd stack and about to get the injury and is trying to go for a 2-tap on you, just stand still. Force her to M1 you. Because like, she can't make you get a stack. You can just stand there and go, right, you M1 me or you're not getting this health state. And you will force her hand. She'll be forced to M1 you. She can't make you take a health state if you don't want to take it. Like, is there someone you forgot to ask? You know? And I feel like I say this every day, but you ultimately choose. And then you can always just make the choice to not get spotted by just standing still. That's always an option you have. Mm-hmm. You might get a hit for it, but if she's that close to you, you're probably losing health state anyway. Mm-hmm. So it's like, and one a little funnier thing. If you are injured at 2 stacks and you're like doing a gen or whatever, just go find the nearest drone, get a claw trap, because it makes it much easier later, because you'll have a deep wound, but you're not losing a health state from it. And it means that you can find them a good line of sight, make sure she can't ambush you, pre-run if you see her coming, just sit on a gen with a claw trap on you. And then when it falls off in 45 seconds, you'll be able to reset. Because if you're at 2 stacks and you're injured and you reset, you are healthy at 2 stacks, which if the merchant knows that, means you're basically injured again. Because she'll spot you, you're 99, like Ghostface, she'll throw a drone up and you get instantly injured again. Mm. Like, that wastes a lot of time you spent resetting and can get you 2-tap when you don't want to. Grabbing a claw trap while you're injured, you have a deep wound, mend that. Then the claw trap is on you, but you control it. You decide where to. You can be claw trapped on your terms, so you can find somewhere safe to be. You can do things that she doesn't really want to mess with you. Like if you're outside of the map, healing people, for example, you can do stuff that makes her not have to worry about a claw trap. And then it falls off, and you can reset fine. You can do whatever you need to do once that's gotten rid of. She'll put you in difficult situations where you have to make bad choices, but it's down to you to make the right ones. Right. And that's why I think people don't like her so much, because they don't have the information they need to make the right choices.
Getting hit by an M1 is almost always better than getting hit with the drone, because
hands down.
She has the blade wipe animation, and you get the distance to run. It's not perfect.
And she has to hit you twice to hinder you rather than just once.
Yeah, exactly. And to your point of like standing still to avoid the drone beam and whatnot, I have talked about counterplay for Chucky before, and I have noticed that whenever you bring up not moving as counterplay, people just completely dismiss it.
I've seen that happen many times.
Because I've said this before. And, you know, I bring up Chucky a lot. Once again, it's because I play him, so he's my biggest frame of reference. But if you're at a tall loop and you can't see Chucky, and he activates Hidey Ho, and you know he does because he went undetectable, and you start seeing footsteps, stop moving. That is your counterplay. Because I promise you, what he's doing is he is using the third-person camera to see which side of the loop you're about to head out of, and waiting for you to panic.
Waiting for you to commit, yeah.
Yeah, that's all he's doing. And it's like, whenever I tell people that, they're like, well, I can't just stop moving. That means I'm playing into his hands. No, you're not.
No. It's like, have you heard of this thing called a check spot?
Like
that players use all the time to increase chase times by just standing still at a corner of the tile where they can see the killer coming and plan their route accordingly.
Yeah.
Like, just holding W around the tile for as long as you can is not the only way to play a tile, and nor is it the best one.
Yeah, like it's not even, once again, this isn't even just a Dead by Daylight thing. Like, if you say like the counterplay for something is not moving, people lose their minds for some reason.
Yes.
I don't know why. They have this idea that like if you aren't actively doing something, it's not technically counterplay.
Yeah, it's a real parasitic mindset, and doubly so for a killer like Skull Merchant, who isn't played very much, isn't played well when she is played, and generally people give up against her, or they'll disengage from the game altogether, or just complain or whatever. Like, there are tools you have, there are things you can learn. If you don't do it, that's on you. It's not my goddamn problem. if you don't want to play as my killer, I'll take the free kills. I'm chill with that. It's why when people see people go up against Skull Merchant, DC against Skull Merchant, I see that as indictment of them, not indictment of me for picking the killer I like. Like,
right.
There is a lot you could be doing to have a better time against this killer and better time against me, and it is not my responsibility to ensure that you do it. It's not my responsibility to coddle you. I'm your opponent, not your babysitter. I'm not here to entertain you. I'm here to have fun playing the killer, playing my favorite killer.
Right.
And it is on you to learn how to play against it. There are ways you can do it. There are things you can learn. It is up to you to learn them. And if not, I don't lose sleep over it, you know?
On top of that, I don't even know what her pick rate is offhand. It's not that high.
No, it's not. On Nightlight right now, it's about 2%.
Yeah, it's not like people are playing against Skull Merchant every other match, right? It's like...
Yeah. Although you wouldn't believe it, but the complaints you get, I got 8 Skull Merchants today and they all bled me out and they punched my mum and killed my dog, and that's why your IP address is on Reddit right now. It was even worse during like the 3-gen Merchant when she was like one of the least played killers in the game, like bottom 3.
Mm-hmm.
People still like she had her every game. It's like, clearly you didn't. And especially when people say, oh, she's just the same as she was before, like that is an indication to me that you don't play against her enough, never played against her enough to complain as much as you do.
Right.
It's like, clearly you don't, I mean, it's the kindest possible. You don't know what you're talking about. I mean, in the kindest way possible. Like, you do not understand the thing you are talking about, and that is a hard thing to try and tell somebody, especially trying to be like, I want to help you learn because I've been in more Skull Merchant matches than you will ever be.
I took a business seminar when I was in college, and the guy came out talking to us. The first thing he told us, I have sat on this for years because it's one of the best pieces of advice I think I've ever gotten. Your opinion doesn't matter to me because I know more than you.
Yeah, actually.
It sounds like an asshole thing to say, and it is in specific contexts. But, like, I'm not going to go to a math professor and start professing my opinions on how math should work and expect him to take them seriously. You know what I mean? Yeah,
like, I will have a good faith discussion with just about anybody.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're going to try and assert to me that the 2 Skull Merchants you played against since October are somehow more indicative of the state of the killer state of the game than me playing her day in, day out for like 5 months, I'm sorry, I have a bridge to sell you.
Right, and don't get me wrong, there is such a thing as expertise bias. That is a thing. I understand that's a thing. But at the same time, that's why there's a give and take with it. You know, when people talk about Chucky wrong, it's like, I'm not like, oh, you idiot, like, why would you say that? No, I explain why they're wrong, and then try to have a discussion from there, right?
Yeah, but again, that's why I enjoy my chat with Scott so much, because that was a case of both of us wanting to learn from the other one.
Right, but a lot of people, especially on the internet, don't like that.
Yeah.
Because an argument is meant to be won, not to, even though it's not. An argument is meant to be, it's a war, it's a battle.
Yeah.
I have to win.
The goal is not understanding, the goal is judging how much of an idiot your opponent is.
Oh, man. I sound like a pretentious college student with everything I just said in the last 3 paragraphs.
Well, welcome to my world.
Oh my god.
Made an entire channel around being like that, and I ain't stopping now.
What did you, you studied writing in college, right?
I did. I have a degree in literature and creative writing.
Yeah, I studied... Would you like to guess what my 2 degrees are in?
I don't. I've got no idea. I'd love to hear.
I have an associate's in psychology and a bachelor's in philosophy.
Ooh.
Yes. Which is
like
which is why I come off as a pretentious asshole when I try not to.
No, I've been there. Well, I am there. It's just a continuous state of residence.
It's I try not to come off condescending sometimes, and like, and I never.
This point, I've given up on trying.
Yeah,
I've been trying it all my life.
It's like it's never my intention. It's just sometimes like it's just the way. Not you. I'm just saying like sometimes it's just the way we're like trained to talk. I guess I don't know.
It's like at this point, I'm just doubling down on it.
Yeah, that's really all you can do.
Like I try. and it doesn't work. So I'm just like, okay, right, time to double down on being a smug asshole.
Speaking of literature and smug asshole, Skull Merchant's lore.
Okay, well, this is an interesting one.
Okay, now I have watched your video on it. I've watched 3. Is it 3 videos on it, or just the 2?
I've done 2 on her lore.
Okay.
I touched on it in other videos, but
2 on her lore. And I have the basic ideas of it. I have read it myself before.
Yeah.
I am not the biggest fan, but I don't despise it like a lot of other people seem to.
I've seen insane in the brain takes. Well, Skull Merchant in every capacity, but her lore is certainly one of those places. Mm-hmm. Especially from people who are who would spend the last 2 years lambasting my channel for making irrelevant content because I don't care about DBD lore, suddenly acting like an emeritus professor in English when Skull Merchant is concerned. It's like, oh, no, now DBD lore is interesting enough for you to talk about when it's time for you to shit on it. Come on. Yeah. Merchant's an odd case because, well, story of today's video, I suppose, but her lore really starts to get interesting when you consider her a recurring theme of DBD over the past couple of years, which is that the boundary between fiction and reality is blurry, especially with entities concerned, because it's been established as far back as Tome 3 that what is fiction in one universe can become reality in another, or what is reality in one world can be seen in visions by a writer and become reality and become fiction in another. Good example here is when Hattie's uncle Stefan saw a vision of an alternate universe version of Hattie in the trials and wrote a story about her. So reality becomes fiction. I think that is how the Skull Merchant came to be. Her father Saita saw a vision of her in the fog as an adult doing all this fun old murdering stuff. Wrote about the character that he saw. Wrote about this this stylish, edgy sadist who tortured people and inflicted great harm, more or less for shits and gigs. Wrote the manga about her, and then Adriana read that as a child and took that inspiration to become the adult that her father would see and write about.
So it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy, kind of.
It's a bootstrap paradox.
That's what it is. That's what it is. Yeah.
Bootstrap paradox. The piece of writing inspiring itself. And that's something that has been, and that's a very unique position that she holds in the DBD pantheon, because the whole notion of fiction and reality being discrete things in the entity's realm, it's been banged about in the background of stories for a long time, but Skull Merchants is the first, at least until Alan Wake, which handles this issue very upfront.
Right.
This is what happens in a world where what is written and what is real overlap more than they should. And I think it's part of people think that she's so goofy, so she's become her father's manga character, but it's just as accurate to say that her father wrote her. Her father turned his manga character into her. It's just as accurate to put it that way. But because we view what happened as from her eyes, where she grew up into this person, rather than the person having grown from her, viewed it from a different perspective, the lore becomes a lot less absurd.
Right. I mean, the biggest criticism I often hear for her lore is that the whole thing with her dad, and basically the stuff that isn't about her directly, is, quote, pointless, and there wasn't any need to add it in. And I'm like, what do you mean? What do you mean it was pointless? It sets the whole thing up. I don't. Yeah. I don't understand that criticism. I never will.
My frustration with her lore is that it's weird to say that, but for how long it is, I don't think it's long enough, because about half her story is her life before the age of 18.
Right.
It's all about her father and his career as a mangaka and his struggling to keep the family afloat. But it doesn't really talk about who she is as a person. And that, I think, is its biggest drawback. The tome does help with that a lot by giving us point of view stories from her. to show her absolutely massive ego and like how she sustains it. But her base lore, I think, could have done with as much detail as the first half had, talking about her family life. The second half should have had that much detail about her adult life, and it didn't have it.
Does it really ever go into detail about her? I mean, I guess it's implied with the fact that she's rich, but like, does it really ever go into detail with like how intelligent she is?
She's it's odd because it doesn't really talk about how she builds and maintains the drones. It doesn't really talk about that. A lot of it is kind of left it's left implied. Like right. It's never stated, but there's more than enough indications that she is pretty fucking smart. Right. Even to the point that, look at her trailer, you see her assembling and maintaining the drones herself. Like, she's clearly technically minded, even though the story doesn't talk about how she got that technical expertise. She's clearly an astute businesswoman. She's clearly capable of planning like complex hunts and heists without anyone catching on. Doesn't really show us how, and I would have loved to see that. That's my big frustration with the story, but the implication is she might be one of the smartest killers we've ever had in terms of like planning skills.
Right.
She's up there with characters like the Doctor.
Yeah, and probably right below Singularity, technically speaking. Well, actually, I wouldn't even say. Yeah, that's a. Is AI actually smart? That's a.
Singularity is a really real weird kettle of fish because the problem with Singularity. I'm going to go a brief aside here. I think Singularity's lore sucks ass.
No, I've watched both your videos on it. I watched them yesterday, actually.
Yeah, I think Singularity's lore falls apart when you scrutinize it for more than 2 seconds, and the entire story only makes sense if everybody in it has taken crazy pills and is waking up from a week-long hangover before it all starts.
They're clones.
Because nothing makes any sense.
They're clones. It makes sense.
Yeah, nothing makes any sense in that stupid story. So Hux is meant to be intelligent, but unfortunately he's written like a caveman.
Yeah.
Which is a damn shame.
Well, it's one of those things, too, like I said, that opens up a whole philosophical debate on, is artificial intelligence actually smart? Like, if you want to be technical, no, but it's, whatever. With Skull Merchant, though, it's like her technical expertise and like the idea of how intelligent she is. Why is she intelligent? Like, because do we even have a timeline of like when she's from, or is it just?
Well, what we can tell is like the modern day or very close to it, because she had access to like to the internet, to the ability to make a website at the age of 11.
Yeah, like that's like a 20-year gap.
Yeah, that's the thing. It is. There's lots of stuff that it's there if you look for it. Like a great example here is the kind of technology that she built. Like looking at her jumpsuit, looking at the camp she has in Shelter Woods, all made of mesh prefab structures. Lots of looks like cases of technology with the same logo branded on it. It looks military.
Right.
So there's a clear implication there that her technology, at least, or she made a lot of her money selling weapons.
Yeah, it's probably PMC.
Or say military technology.
Yeah, probably PMC.
Which is why she'd have drones on hand.
Yeah, I was going to say probably PMC groups and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. There's suggestions that she's an alcoholic because like half of her room in Shelter Woods is a wine rack. Like there's lots of little things that construct the idea of like they clearly know the kind of character they want Adriana Amai to be. They clearly knew what they wanted when they wrote her. I just think the puzzle is missing some pieces, and with a bit of imagination, elbow grease, and a bit of interpretation of what we can see outside of what's written in black and white, the picture becomes more complete. I just wish we had a little bit more to go on, you know?
Yeah. Do you think voice lines would have helped?
Perhaps. They would need to be in Portuguese. Which like I would say the one time I've had that before was with Trickster. Because his voice lines are in Korean. And they are nice, but don't really add much because most players can't understand them. So maybe... Yes, subtitles obviously do help, but I don't see many Trickster players using subtitles. or even survival using subtitles. I would have maybe, if she had more complex voice lines than Trixie, something on the level of a Pinhead or Chucky, perhaps I could have seen it 100%. I certainly wouldn't say no. But I think the best way they could have done this would have been just to give the second half of the lore the amount of attention that the first half got. I think that's the best they could have done.
So earlier, we were talking about killer designs. You mentioned that they do it from the top down, which, as I've said, is how most game studios do characters nowadays. Because it used to actually be the opposite for a lot of game companies. They would have the character already like set up and then kind of like force them into a game. But do you think, and then you had the conspiracy with the whole alien thing, do you think her lore kind of got stapled together, for lack of a better word, like last minute?
I'm not sure, because I think they went into it with an idea of what they wanted their character to look like, for want of a better word. They knew the broad strokes they wanted to paint. I just think they maybe... I think it was stapled together. I think it was a case of a lot, like, they want to tell a big complex story. They've done this many times before. They did it with Twins, they did it with Plague, like big complex stories. And they used to be able to paper over those stories with period accurate stuff, with entity shenanigans. They like weird kind of pseudo mystical shit that ties into DB's wider storytelling, like the Blight and the Black Veil and whatnot. With Adriana, they kind of had to strip it down because she doesn't have supernatural elements. She's not a historical domain character who has real history to draw upon. Like, she is meant to be modern day, grounded, but still they're going to pair that with a fairly theatrical character. So they had a lot of work to do, and unlike most killers, not a lot of fantastical leeway to make it happen. So I think it was a case of them trying to do a lot with a little, and honestly coming kind of close than people give them credit for. I think it was more of a it's just a case of, with telling a story like this, you have to make sure the character is consistent a whole way through, and any suspension of disbelief has to be addressed quickly. And I think they managed to pull that off. It's just a question of she needed a little bit more time in the oven when it comes to finishing the story properly, making sure that everything has an acceptable answer. That's not just, you don't have to navel gaze into the precise bits of the design of her room on Shelter Woods.
You don't gotta Tom Clancy it. You just gotta
like they knew what they wanted to do. They had the picture, I think, quite early. They just needed to properly fill in all the gaps. Maybe they took some stuff for granted that maybe wasn't as clear as it should have been.
Right.
But I think, much like the rest of her, I think the hatred is overblown. She's not a lot of people's things, because a lot of people like flashier designs, for a better word. Like, take Knight. Knight is a design that is pretty popular. Like, the big, scary, evil Knight, pretty common design, hard to fault it. But also, you literally couldn't fuck it up.
Right. It's
like, it is impossible to make a Knight character that at least people are going to go, oh, that's brilliant. Like, look at that. That is a cool design. Like, yes, it's an armored knight with a giant sword. Well done.
It's just like Oni. It's literally just an Oni.
Yeah, it works. It's simple and it works really well, but it's a little unadventurous.
Right.
And I think Twins are another example of a killer that is adventurous in their design. Like, they are odd. They are peculiar. They are ugly intentionally.
Right.
They are meant to be kind of off-putting to look at in a way, because they've had such a horrible life.
Well,
and you can see it etched into Charlotte's face, into her stance, into how she is going to give life alone to Britta, because he's all that she's got left. And that's a lot of people is not broadly appealing, because they want something badass. They don't want something that makes you sad.
There's two. It's badass or cute. Those are the two.
Yeah, badass or cute. And Merchant being just kind of weird and only really working if you buy into her concept completely. Because I think that's a pretty fair criticism, is that, like, you have to have bought into the idea of this rich, murderous millionaire who like basically cosplays her way into mass murder. You have to be willing to buy into that, and especially if if you're first in, and so you have to go for the story first, and then have that make you buy into the design. A lot of DBD players buy into the design first, and then see if this, and then maybe they'll be interested in the story if the design works for them.
Right,
because their first impression isn't to go for the story; it's to go for what they see.
Well, I mean, most people don't read the lore, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's exactly my point. Like, I can't blame them for that. I can't blame them for that at all. But I think Merchant's the case where you have to buy into the idea to appreciate the design,
right?
And a lot of people don't. So it makes sense why her design is so disliked.
Also, this is kind of going back to Twins. They have stated before that, and this is more me talking the business side of Dead by Daylight. It is an unfortunate reality, but it is part of it that I think we all need to remember. They have stated before that Plague is one of their least hated designs because it has been so difficult over the years to make skins for her. Because of how unique her model is and her design.
Yeah.
She can't fit into a lot of themes. You have to they have to work extra hard to make skins work for her. And I think I think Twins is also another example of that. You can like, people can also argue, well, that's also because they have a low play rate, so they're not going to make skins for a character with low play rate. That is also fair and true, and I understand that, but part of it is also it's just very difficult to make skins for them, I feel. That work on a, like, people will buy this stance.
Yeah. Because it also doesn't help that in both cases they are historical domain characters, that wearing something too far out of their time period looks weird. Look at Vittorio. Vittorio looks anachronistic as fuck. Part of that's by intentionally, I know, but he gets a lot of skins. Yeah. Most of them do not look like they belong on him.
No.
Or at least belong on the character that Vittorio's story tries to present him as. That's an issue with a lot of historical domain characters, is they are inherently limited in terms of their looks. This, I think, is actually one of Merchant's strengths, because she's an ordinary human woman.
Yeah, you can throw her in anything.
Yeah, and is it kind of why the issues that people have with her base look don't really stick with me, because she has so many good cosmetics that mix and match together amazingly.
We're gonna get into that a little bit later, but yeah, like Dredge. Dredge is another example. When Dredge got revealed, I was actually terrified, because I enjoyed him. I got I got very, very enthralled by the design because, but I also got scared because I was like, this is such a unique killer. They're not going to be able to make any skins for this, are they? Lo and behold, I'd argue they've made some of the best skins in the game on him.
Agreed.
Ironically, I think they went so unique, they can do whatever they want. And it works.
I'd say so. I think Singularity suffered from that, because theory here, almost any Singularity skin would look as good or better on Dredge.
Yeah.
That sounds awful to say, but I think Dredge's design is so open-ended and Singularity's are so closed off by comparison. Like, it's annexed into that specific sci-fi angle, that specific kind of sci-fi angle, not just like a generic sci-fi angle. Like, that specific kind of space opera, event horizon sci-fi. That anything you did Singularity, Dredge would also have, and it'd probably look better.
I mean, I think the only, like, quote, good Singularity skin is it's not actually called this, but I call it the true Singularity. It's the one where, like, he's, like, actually suited up.
Yeah.
Like, he's not just like metal, but he's not just like a skeleton.
Yes.
Yeah, that's like the only good Singularity skin in my opinion.
Yeah, fair enough. He is lacking good skins. I think part of that is because design just prohibits a lot of creativity.
Yeah.
It's a shame.
Yeah. And they try. I'll give them credit. They try.
Yeah, they do try.
But yeah, I mean, because, like, the Maurice skin for Dredge.
Oh,
do you think,
yes.
Do you think anyone would have seen that coming?
No. Like, or even, like, the doll skin that came on his release. That's a banger skin.
Yeah, or the...
How it clicks and...
Yeah, the snowman skin?
Yes,
I still say
the Nightmare.
Yeah, I still say that's one of the best skins in the game. I will die on that hill. It is one of the best skins in the game.
It's a banger.
I'm not a big fan of the weapon, but otherwise,
yeah.
But yeah, like, I mean, because Skull Merchant is like really the only, because the closest we've gotten to a modern day quote unquote killer is what, Legion and Ghostface.
So.
Because Singularity's future.
Yeah, but it's her and Trickster are the two.
Yeah, I didn't even think about Trickster. I didn't even consider him modern. I don't know why. I like think of him like in his own like dimension sometimes.
We'll forget he exists. It's fine.
It's funny because I've gone on record saying Trickster to me is, if the DVD killers were real, like IRL, Trickster's probably the most terrifying to me because he's the most actually real killer.
I think for me it's. Well, I think I would say that, but then I remember how many killers are based on real people. Like Clown, Doctor, Dredge.
Like I said, the thing with Trickster though is like a famous person who lures his fans in to kill them and then gets away with it. Yeah, not only can I see that happening, that has happened.
Yeah, honestly, same with rich CEO murders union members and gets away with it because she's ridiculously rich and no one asks questions.
Yeah, but I'm not a union member or rich, so I'm
fair enough.
A fan of music, though, yeah, that I am.
Yeah, you're toast.
Yeah, yeah, because you watched the Karn interview too.
Yes, I did.
So we talked about artist's lore a bit, and I did bring up that I feel like the pendulum has swung a bit too much, that they're trying to make a lot of the killers more sympathetic. I don't know if that's the proper word. Empathetic might be the right word, but they're trying to make you feel more for the killers and like actually give them... What?
Sorry, no. Continue.
Yeah. I'm just trying to use the right word is all. It's like, am I wrong in this assessment?
I actually, when I watched this part of the video, you got me thinking, and I did the maths. And I think they're going the opposite direction. Because let's look back at the first few killers they released. The original 3, Hillbilly, Wraith, Trapper. At least 2 of them, let's be honest, all 3 were from the start at least somewhat sympathetic.
Right.
Because Wraith was like an immigrant looking for a better life. Hillbilly was an abused child. Trapper was also an abused child, but a bit different. Then Nurse, who was a distraught, unemployed widow with no prospects in life, who went insane because of the treatment at the asylum. And then we had Huntress, who was an abandoned baby, who had to fend for her own in the forest for her entire adult life. And then we had Hag, who was like an innocent girl found in the wrong place at the wrong time. Like, we didn't have a morally reprehensible killer until the Doctor over a year into DBD's existence.
Before you keep up with this, let me because I've now remembered what my college professors have told me.
Fair enough.
Okay, the difference between sympathetic and empathetic. When I say sympathetic, I mean, when I say empathetic, like I think Trapper is a good example of empathetic. I can understand why he does what he does. I don't agree with it, and I don't feel bad. Sympathetic would be like Hillbilly. Yeah. I understand why he's doing it, and I feel bad for him.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Yeah.
Like, my point is, we've had more, like, unmitigated psychopaths in recent years than we had before. Because, look at the last few original killers. We had Singularity, who was... Actually, Singularity is kind of in the middle ground, where it's like, you understand why Hudson turned out the way he did, but it doesn't mean to say you think it's not a good for him moment when he murders the crew of the of Tober Landing.
Well,
like, come on.
Once again, a can of worms of AI. All
yes,
that.
Of course.
So it's just.
But before that, you get Skull Merchant, one of the most morally repugnant killers in the setting, like a proper monster. You get Tarosh the Knight, who has exactly one redeeming feature, and that is his fellowship with his brothers. Otherwise, total sociopath. Before him, it was Dredge, based on a real life massacre, conducted by an insane cult leader. So it's like the last sympathetic killer, we had was Artist, and she was 2 years ago. She was the last one, because our other killers have all been licensed: Wesker, Chucky, Xeno.
Yeah, I don't. Maybe it's just
I think a couple of years ago when we'd had killers like Twins and the Blight, Deathslinger, maybe there's like an argument to be had there. But doing the math, it's like we've had a lot of arseholes in the past year or so.
I don't know
more than you might think.
Like now that you say it out loud like that, it's like I don't know why I thought that. I think it's maybe because those are like the ones you said, Deathslinger, Artist, Twins. That's like the era where like I was super into the lore.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why I think that.
Kind of like hanging over because Night, Skull Merchant, Singularity didn't grip you quite that because it took me a second to figure it out and be like, hang on a minute. Getting out my little pie chart.
And then
maybe, we've had a lot of assholes recently, actually.
And I mean, even if you look at the licensed killers, I mean, Chucky. Don't get me started on Chucky.
The little shit.
Have you seen the TV show?
I have, yes.
Yeah. He was a little shit from the start.
Yes, very much.
For those who don't know, Chucky's first murder was his own mother.
Yes, at the age of about 10, I think.
It was on his 10th birthday.
Yeah.
Who was before Chucky licensed? Xenomorph. It's his.
Yeah, it's a creature.
That one's complicated because
its morality is hungry.
Right. Well, I mean, not even technically because they don't even really eat.
No.
So
its morality is horny.
Yes. There you go. Geiger would be proud.
Yes, he would.
Yeah. Are they? Yeah, okay. This is a weird one with Xenomorph. Because the lore is complicated and stitched together as if. It's almost like they didn't know they had a franchise on their hand or something. Is it a hive mind, technically? Are they individualistic? I always forget what the...
It's inconsistent depending on the writer. I think individual... It's kind of like... They're like insects, really.
Mm-hmm.
I think they have independent thought, but not independent will, if that makes sense.
Okay, they're like ants.
Yeah.
Yeah, there can be.
They clearly have intelligence because, like, even on its own, a xenomorph can like strategize. It can outwit its prey, but I don't think they have the capacity to like. You couldn't rebel against the queen. Let's say.
Well,
they have the will to do that,
unless you read the comics.
Unless you read the comics,
yeah.
That's the Wild West. That's the Wild West.
What do you mean to tell me a xenomorph throwing facehuggers at people isn't canon? Come on. That's in one of the comics, actually.
I haven't read the comic myself, but I think I've heard about it.
Yeah, it's literally like it's a xenomorph with like deer antlers, where like the facehuggers like sit on the antlers, and like it literally just throws them at victims. It's amazing.
Sounds it.
Yeah, there's actually a xenomorph form called this. Bran was telling me about this. Mr. Headache. There's a variant called the Xenomorph King that its entire purpose is to usurp the current queen, and then become the queen.
I think I've heard about it, but I don't know much about it.
Yeah, how that works in like a practical sense, I have no idea. But yeah, and what I mean by that is in the sense of why would you want that in your ecosystem?
Yeah, it seems like a bizarre evolutionary choice.
Who was before Xenomorph? Xenomorph was licensed. Was it Pin?
Yeah, right before that was Singularity.
No, I meant licensed.
Licensed was Wesker,
who is outright a sociopath.
Yes, complete sociopath.
Yeah, complete sociopath. Before that was Pinhead, right?
Yep.
That one's
who was
arguable.
Yeah. Applying morality to Pinhead is like applying morality to a cheese sandwich.
There was like a 2-week span on Twitter where people were trying to apply morality to Pinhead.
To Cenobites, like that ain't working.
Yeah, like I didn't participate. I was just an onlooker, but I saw arguments from both sides, and all of them sounded ridiculous. I was like,
yeah,
he's more of a force than anything.
Yeah.
It's like, is a hurricane evil?
The morality is no.
Yeah.
It's just no.
Unless you watch the bad movies.
Oh, yes.
But yeah, I guess you're right, though. They have definitely switched gears. And I guess the fact that I don't really remember it is maybe a sign that I'm in the wrong. Maybe we do need more sympathetic killers.
Well, what might be that maybe the news stories just haven't interested you in the way that they didn't capture imagination in the way that the artists and the twinses of the world did.
I think Singularity did, but that's more so because it. Once again, this is probably the philosophy major in me coming out, but it's like the idea of, does an AI actually think, or is it just, learning? Does it actually have a moral compass? Can it have goals? Or is it just programming? And then that brings in the whole question of like, what is humanity? And then it's a fucking that's a whole other
can of worms.
Yeah, that's a whole other 5-hour podcast that I could totally not stop talking about. Back to Dead by Daylight base.
Yep.
Would you say Skull Merchant is map dependent?
I think she feels really bad on very open maps because they can see everything. They see you coming, and Technical doesn't do anything. They can. There's always a way to path around your drones because they can just see them. But like, okay, I'm not going to go there now. Like very open maps feel really bad. Your rotten fields, your Borgos, your gas heavens, your blood lodges. But I'd say she's not particularly map dependent. Like she's not like Huntress or Billy map dependent. She doesn't feel good on some maps, but it's not catastrophic. You can make it work.
Right.
Obviously indoor maps she's mostly pretty good. I like a lot of multi-floor maps more than a lot of Skull Merchant play as well, because you can do some very funky stuff on stairs that I intend to show in my guide. But this is a lot of explaining and charts. It uses charts.
Coming out soon, TM.
Yes, I've been editing it today, so hopefully early March. Cross fingers.
So this video will go out. I'm going to date this, but
fair enough.
The next one will be this Wednesday, so in 2 days from now, and then yours will be the week after that, so it'll be next Wednesday.
Fair enough then.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, if it's out before then,
it will not be. I've still got a lot to do.
If it's out after that, I will link it below. If it's out, I will remind myself.
Take ages to make, so.
Yeah.
I still got a lot to do. So don't need to worry.
Yeah, understand.
Yeah, she's as map dependent as an M1 killer would normally be. Like some maps feel terrible, some maps feel alright. She kind of has map dependency similar to Clown, I think, except probably a little worse on very open maps, a little better on like indoor maps. So.
What about Gideon's?
I actually quite like Gideon.
Okay. Then she's not
because
Clown.
Fair enough then. Because Gideon's a map I like on a lot of killers actually, probably more than I should. Like Gideon Pinhead, that's fun. But it's the fact that again it's a multi-floor map, so she can do a lot of trickery on it. If you're running 2 tap perks, they become absolutely foul. You're a stealth killer, so downstairs is a death trap. She is one of the best M1 killers to play on like Gideon. I really do like it.
Yeah, because I mean it's all god palettes, but like you can force them. Well, you can put a drone on one side of the god palette, and then they have to make a choice. At that point.
You can make them really. Because you can get the injuries without needing to commit to breaking 1 trillion pallets. It helps. It helps.
Yeah, Gideon's is a weird map.
But it's also one of the best spots to do all the funny stuff, the really funny stuff.
Gideon's is a weird map because it's one. I've gone through my matches and I'm like, I actually win on Gideon's more than any other map, but I hate it.
Fair enough. I really enjoy playing Gideon most of the time. Like some killers feel terrible. Like if I'm playing, I know, fucking, what is it? Huntress on Gideon. I want to blow my brains out with a shotgun.
Depends on the Huntress you ask on that, by the way. Some I said it depends on the Huntress you ask. Some of them love Gideons.
Yeah, upstairs is alright. Downstairs is horrifying. Or like owning on Gideon, like pass me the arsenic, please. But yeah, it could be worse. I think Gideon gets a bad rap.
Is there any particular map you would say you visibly see and just start groaning?
For Merchant specifically, Rotten Fields, because it's big and open. You can't sneak up on anybody because you are just tall enough to be seen through the corn, but not so tall that you can see over it. Your drones are really visible. There's always room to path around them. A lot of the cold wind tiles are also just tall enough that your drone can't see over them. There's a couple of cool things you can do on the map, but not very many. It's just dull as bricks. I cannot stand it. Borgo isn't much better. Again, high visibility, big and open. You path around all the drones in the world. But really, you put me on Rotten Fields, I am crawling into a little hole and I'm crying my eyes out.
The lasers go through the corn, though, at least, right?
They do.
Okay.
But you can't see the survivors to aim it properly, is the question.
No, I'm only asking that because we all know Ghostface and Myers or particularly Ghostface on that map. Oh my fucking god.
Yeah, it's bad.
Why can they see me and I can't see them?
Most functional video game.
Oh my god. Also, I learned this very recently with Coldwind, by the way, and I'm going to bring this up on my Chucky guide. Fun fact: the corn sways more for Chucky. I don't know if that's intentional.
That's a little goofy. I like that, though.
And I'm really curious now because I want to test it with Victor.
I hadn't thought about that.
And if it does also work on Victor, behavior that is either I can't tell if that's the dumbest or smartest balancing decision they've ever made.
No, that's a fair question. I like that.
Oh my god.
That's the point.
Yeah. It also means that apparently, I guess they have real physics because that means that the base of the corn shakes it more than the top.
Yeah.
It's something really funny I've noticed watching people play against me. Yeah, I despise Coldwind too. If it makes you feel better on most killers. I can't see anything. Like, it's not even a matter of the loops. I just can't see.
Rotten Fields is the worst for that because it is just a giant expanse of corn and misery.
Yeah. Do you I don't know if you keep a stat tracker, but do you have any stats for Skull Merchant at all?
I don't really keep track of my stats. Honestly, I don't play as much as I'd like to, just because my content doesn't often revolve around playing the game very much. Like, I spend a lot of time scripting, writing, watching things, reading things. Like, I don't play as much as I would like to, much as I should. So yeah, I don't really have an answer for you on that one, I'm afraid.
Oh, fair enough. Fair enough. No, not everyone does. I mean, I play on Windows Store. I can't even track my stats if I wanted to. Yeah. What do you know what her track stat is?
I do not, but she's after the rework. I can check now. Though. I've got Steam open.
It'd be whatever her achievement is.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. After rework, it changed because obviously her kit completely changed. So I don't know what it is now. But I can check.
I would assume it's drone injuries.
Quite likely, but it'll be a strange one because I don't know if it'll carry on from Old Merchant or not, because I don't know, say, if someone played a load of Old Merchant and didn't play any New Merchant, what they'd look like on the leaderboard.
This happened.
She's so weird like that.
Yeah, because it happened with when the hatch changed too. Because they had to rework that achievement.
Yeah.
I don't remember. It's part of the reason why I don't think they're going to change Scamper on Chucky.
Oh yeah, it's Downing Clawtrap Survivors.
Downing Clawtrap Survivors. Okay.
Yes. And I can check my leaderboard stats maybe. Because I hadn't even thought about that, I'll be honest.
Well, I mean, I've said this before. It's weird. Some killers have really dumb tracked stats, and it's not the stat tracker website's fault. They do it based on achievements.
Yeah.
It's like I said, Chucky's track stat is hits after Scamper.
I'm sure you love that.
I love it. I'm so glad that is the stat that everyone who's good at Chucky technically is known for. It scares me though, because it means they can't change it. Most likely.
Yeah. Okay, it's looking like I am. I was checking on the lead on Tricky.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like I am at about number 80.
That is still insane. When you really think about it.
Well, the thing that impresses me is that I only really started playing her properly after the rework.
Once again,
because a lot of these stats are carried over from before the rework, because it used to be downs on exposed survivors, like exposed survivors from when we were being locked on. So a lot of these numbers are players who I know don't play her anymore, or at least haven't played her in a while.
Right.
Like, I'm not going to name them because I don't want to do that. But these are players I know don't play her anymore.
Right.
So if like over time, it's a good chance I catch up. So I'm 817. And the one at the top is 10 times that number, so I'm probably not getting top anytime soon.
You would be surprised. So Horserer, that Nemi man I was telling you about, he's number 4 in the world on tentacle whip hits. He didn't start playing Nemesis until 2 years after he came out.
Okay.
It's not impossible. Yeah. It really, you would be amazed.
Fair enough. Because I see that the okay, I will say so, because it won't hurt people to say the names. The number 3 and number 2 are CM99 and Jane Romero, and I know that both of them do not play the killer anymore.
Yeah.
Both of them stopped after the rework.
Yeah.
So give it a year. I think One Pump Willie is fairly high as well. I don't think he plays her anymore either.
I don't know who he's playing now.
I'm not sure. I think he's gone back to Sadako. I'm not sure.
I don't know.
But in any case, it's looking like it might be a good chance that maybe I'll get up there. Maybe go back in a year. I'll be up at the top. But it depends on if these people got their numbers so high off Old Merchant, and then it looks like many of them have. Because I don't know anybody else who plays New Merchant.
Well,
probably obviously there'll still be some who has to stuck with her.
Well, once again, when I look for players for this, I try to find people who I try to make this very clear. It's not necessarily the size of the audience; it's more so that they make content around the killer in some way, shape, or form. That's who I try to find, and finding someone who made content on New Skull Merchant was not easy, and you were really the only one that I could find that responded. There was maybe one other one. I won't name who they are, but yeah, they said no. So.
Yeah, she's got her dedicated fans, even if they're like me and the people I'm in a VC with sometimes.
Well, we won't go further into that. I was just making a point. It's just like
of course. Yeah, she's not the most popular killer, bless her. But we try.
Yeah, I mean, Chucky's a funny example, right? Chucky was the most played killer for about a month and a half after his release. He has gone down. So I have never seen a killer go from such a high play rate as far down as he has, as quick as he did. It was like a brick wall. There's like 4 Chucky mains left.
Well, that's an interesting thing. I'm looking at Nightlight right now as out of interest, and he's still the 4th most played killer in the game.
Right, but he was number 1 for like 2 straight months. Yeah.
I think Wesker was probably the only one comparable in terms of, because Wesker was like for like a year. Yeah, Wesker was like a quarter of all matches were Wesker.
Yeah. It was just nuts how much it changed. Because what happened was, they got rid of the 180s, and then and then people started complaining about Scamper, and then like I guess people just got bored of him.
Yeah, I suppose
which is understandable. It was just so strange to witness. Plus, I think a lot of people moved on to Hillbilly and Oni. If I'm being honest.
Yeah.
I think Chucky gave them a taste, and these other killers are satiating it.
Yeah, because that's what always put me off Chucky a bit. Was like, if I wanted to play him, I think I'd just play Oni because I like Oni a lot.
He fits my place, and I'm very glad for this because he's also a killer. I think you've seen my comments talking about why he means so much to me.
Oh, I have, yes.
Yeah, but it was a match made because I'm a big fan of pseudo stealth in games.
Yeah.
And he's not a stealth killer because, unlike Ghostface Pig and all these other stealth killers, he can't remain stealth. He has to be
Yeah.
kind of pragmatic with it.
Yeah.
And on top of that, a lot of his power is just being short.
Yeah.
And
I think in my video on him, I described him as sneaky but not stealthy.
Yes, that's what you said. Yeah, I agree with that 100%. Yeah, even in the movies, he's not really stealthy.
He hides in plain sight.
Yeah, because even in my concept for him, I did a concept for him a couple months ago, or a month before he came out, and my idea for him was there was good guy dolls around the map.
Yes,
and he could his power was, one, he could go undetectable, but two, he could sit down and pretend to be the dolls. And
I like it.
What my idea though was, there was an amulet on the dolls, and if you remove the amulet, it takes them out of the undetectable. So the idea was you have to pay attention to where the dolls are placed and pray it's not the real Chucky when you go to take the amulet off.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
A lot, actually.
Yeah. I did also predict he was 110 because I knew that was going to happen.
Yeah. I can be saying on Khan's
he's small.
video.
He's small.
Yeah, he's a little guy.
Yeah, he's a small little guy, yeah. But yeah, I mean, you'll get up there though. Like I said, you'd be surprised. A lot of people stop playing. A lot of people take breaks.
Yeah.
Like, and then I don't know who's number one on there, but I know the Xenomorph number one.
Number one is Collar SM with 8,000 downs on Locked On Survivors.
Do you know them?
Not a clue.
Okay.
I think they might be a Chinese player.
Okay, well,
judging by the character and then in their username.
Yeah,
and just by the name, they're still playing her. So I don't think I'm ever catching them.
Well, so here's the thing, right? On the Xenomorph one, for tail attacks, a lot of the Xenomains, I was talking to Mr. Hiddick about this, they're pretty sure whoever is doing it either has literally nothing else to do all day, or it's an internet cafe computer that gets transferred around.
Yeah.
Because there is no way they have that many.
Yeah, because I'm thinking that because they have SM in their name, so I think they're just a real Scottish player who's played her a lot and is still playing her.
Right.
So I think I'm ever catching them, but maybe the others.
I mean, you gotta admire the commitment at least.
100%.
Yeah, and I usually like to end these. I usually ask what other games people play, just to like kind of get our brains off of DVD for a little bit when we get off of here.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you're really playing other than Dead by Daylight right now?
There's two things. One is in real life. I play Magic the Gathering.
Mm-hmm.
That is a game that's been a passion of mine for many years. It kind of fits a similar part of my brain to the part of me like playing Scottish. Honestly, it's a puzzle.
Right.
I like being given pieces or finding pieces and being like, right, this is what I'm going to build, this horrible machine out of cardboard and rules that everyone will hate.
Mill decks?
Stacks.
Oh, you don't do mill. I do mill. When I played, I did mill decks because I like being that asshole.
Yeah, I think everyone experimented with mill decks at some point, but I'm more like, hey, your spells cost more to cast. Everything comes in tapped. You get one spell per turn, and I'll blow your lands up. Like that is the way I play Magic.
For those who don't know, TCG, mill decks are basically, it's a deck that gets rid of the other person's deck. It's like the entire point of it is to make them lose by proxy, basically.
Yeah. Whereas I just go, hey, the way I play the game is to ensure that you don't. Like people complain that Scottish is miserable. Trust me, you haven't seen nothing yet. Like I will strip my lock you and I will smile while I do it. But yeah, I play a lot of Magic, literally once a week. Go to the local game store, ruin some days, come back, do some editing. That's the tempo of my life. But the other game I play a lot is Overwatch, mostly because I have friends that really want to play it with me.
That's a good enough
reason. I do still enjoy it a lot. I do still enjoy me some Overwatch even after Overwatch 2 has happened.
Who's your main in Overwatch?
I would like you to guess, because every time I've asked someone to guess my main in Overwatch, they've always got it right. Every single person's always got it right, because I have a certain vibe about me.
Is it Symmetra?
And it's not, but you're so close.
Is it Torbjorn?
No. What Symmetra is a very good guess. A very, very good guess.
Mm-hmm.
It's Sigma.
Oh, it's sick. Oh, that makes way more sense.
Yeah, literally, like people get it right so often. Symmetra is probably my favorite character in Overwatch as a person, and I was a Symmetra main for a very long time.
Just so underused.
But then Sigma came out, and it was like, okay, there is nothing else I care about. This old bald man who throws rocks at people. This is my life now. But yeah, play a lot of Overwatch still. Got friends who play it, so it's just another game and play with friends, especially if they don't play DBD for some reason. Why they won't want to play DBD, I've got no idea. But yeah, it leads to some good times.
Yeah. I don't play it much anymore, but can you guess who my main in Overwatch was?
I'm gonna guess Cassidy.
Nope. Not even close.
Fair enough. Moira.
Closer.
Okay. Lucio?
Closer.
Okay, I give up then.
Brigitte.
Good choice. Very good choice.
Yeah, I love. It's not even because she's broken. I just love I love the paladin archetype.
No, if I end up playing support, I end up playing Brig. She's a lot of fun.
She's a lot of fun, and she just like fits my playstyle of. I can stay back and protect my other support, or
yeah,
I can run in with everybody else.
Just stop beating faces.
Yeah, it's great. Plus, I love her character design. I'm a sucker for ponytails, but like her entire character design is just great.
Fair enough.
And she's a cat lover. What's not to like?
Yes, Mitzi's delightful.
But yeah, I think that'll do it. Unless you have anything else you want to add about Skull Merchant.
No, I've really got nothing else to say. I think in the 3 hours we've been doing this, I've covered it pretty extensively.
Give or take.
No,
yeah.
I have a lot of love for this killer, and
it shows.
One way or another, I'd like as many people as I can to, maybe hear her out, give her a time in the sun, because she damn well deserves it. And yeah, I hope that when I get this guide done, I can get people start caring about her a fraction as much as I do,
Yeah. Once again, I mean, I say this a lot, but like, especially at the beginning of this, I can hear, and I mean this in a good way, I can hear the passion. I can hear the passion in your voice for this character.
She's well and truly become an obsession of mine.
Yeah,
and I'll be honest, she has reinvigorated my enjoyment for DBD. It sounds kind of really sappy to say this about a fucking character, especially the Skull Merchant of all characters, but I've been playing Twins for 3 years. And very rarely did we get a killer that came out that got busy for more than a week. Like Pinhead was cool. I played him for a decent while. Same with Artist, but there was a long expanse where there was nothing coming out that interested me. Like people lost signs out Wesker. I practically slept through it. I actually took the longest break from DBD I took since starting my channel when Wesker came out. I was just like, I can't be fucked with this. But then Rework Merchant came out, and it's like everything's clicked into place. I've been playing more killer, more DBD than I've played in a long time. He's made you fall back in love with the game again.
Yeah, and it's always nice. It's always nice when a killer does that.
And I want to share that with as many people as I damn well can. So thank you for having me, because it's let me proselytize, let me preach my sermons to a brand new choir.
Listen. And I don't want to get too starstruck or sappy or whatever the word you want to call it. I used to listen to your videos, especially when you first started making them. I used to work the night shift at my old grocery manager job. Your videos got me through a lot of days. So you being here and me talking to you like this, I know for some people it's surreal. That's all. It's just surreal.
That seriously means a lot. That really, really does.
It does. Even now, like I rewatch your videos all the time. Like I really do. They're entertaining, and hearing your opinions on how the lore should work, because not work, but you know what I mean. Your interpretations of the lore and how and how the storytelling in the game is overall. It does make me think, not just DBD wise, but other games that try to add lore that don't do such a good job. Cough cough. Overwatch sometimes, a lot of the time.
Pretty bad.
What do you mean?
Let's not look at Kiriko. Let's get her in a small room. Fill it up with water and pretend it doesn't exist.
She sold enough skins, it's fine. She goes back in the corner now until the next skin line comes out.
Yep.
But yeah, it's just surreal on my part. And I just want to thank you for coming on.
That seriously does mean a lot, mate. And no, thanks for having me. I hope this. I hope the 3 hours of prattling hasn't put off too many people.
I see the analytics. You'd be not to get too much into the numbers here for the people still watching. People stay for these longer than I expect them to.
It's really good to hear.
Yeah, I mean it's a podcast format, so a lot of people are listening. But still. But in any case, speaking of, I guess we're going to call it a night there, everybody.
Yes, maybe I'm knackered. So,
if you made it all the way through this, I appreciate it. I love you guys, I really do. And Pixel, can you tell them where they can find you one more time?
Yeah, most find me on YouTube at Pixelbush. Most find me on Twitter at PixelbushYT. That's where most of my time. Hopefully I'm back to streaming again soon because I'm moving to a new place where I can get 2 monitors. But we'll see about that. But yeah, mostly just check it out on YouTube.
Got it. And I'll link that below for you guys to find if you can't spell Pixelbush. But really, go check him out. His content's amazing. I watch it like every other day. In any case, I love you guys. Have a good one, and bye.